Incremental readings. This is the section for the myths about incremental reading. At some degree, incremental reading, perhaps only a subset that is spaced repetition. Then, those are the contents that we will see, and do not match exactly what you see in the knowledge tree. Why? Because I did this incrementally. Some videos go in the mastery, some will go in the later on the completionist, and some they have been covered already in the fluency. So do prioritize this, what you see in the screen. We will see some of the myths that, hey, it's just incremental thing just for people who struggle reading, so who struggle learning. So it's just a crutch, meaning if I don't have any difficulty with learning, I will not use incremental reading. Then the myth that you need a knowledge index, in the sense of Zettelkasten, second brain, and so on. A myth. If everyone forgets at the same rate, if repetitions take too much time to be worthwhile, if we can improve memory just by training, so it's just the what you do, the method or technique or the software you use, not the raw capacity. If those natural mechanisms are good enough, then I would hire people, more intelligent people. That doesn't, higher IQ doesn't mean more intelligent, means higher IQ, something artificial, which can be trained. It's not intelligence at all. Benefit more for SuperMemo. There has been a study carried on by SuperMemo themselves, and you will be surprised by the results. Then, instant recall versus online lookups. Why should I spend time memorizing instant recall if I can look it up online? Not just by Google. No, I can just ask AI. If SuperMemo or learning or incremental reading can become an unhealthy addiction, if SuperMemo is for perfectionists or not, or what will happen, more or less, if it's true, and those, I'm not sure I will include this one, and at what age does SuperMemo or learning stops working. It may happen that in the video there will still be some change here and there, but I will just move some videos or adapt the title to be more shorter. That's about it. This is still relevant at this stage, even if you have done the fluency, because in the fluency we haven't done a lot of stuff like language, procedural learning, stuff like this. So there are still some insights to uncover at this degree. And if you didn't follow, you can, the course, it's done in a way that is still fruitful, is still useful if you see it out of context, meaning you haven't seen anything before and you don't follow SuperMemo, just as an incremental reading theory. You still get value. Most of the time that I say SuperMemo is still true if I put here another tool. Most of the time. So that's enough for the introduction, and let's start the section. So we start a new session from this course, and it's about myths. Because one thing is to learn, okay, is this other thing about incremental reading, which may seem like contradictory or counterintuitive. Another thing is something you may already know, turns out it's actually wrong, and false. So you will have to unlearn this. In my own case, that's actually what was harder to do for incremental reading paradigm. Not just learning the new stuff, but getting rid of the bad habits and the the myths, basically. So we have quite a few, as you may see. I will start with this one. Everyone forgets at the same rate. Do you think this is true? Everyone forgets at the same rate? At the same speed? So, we will see how or why knowledge representation impacts both how fast you learn and how fast you forget, both at the same time. So what's the clue? Everyone, regardless of learning style, IQ, in the sense that measures intelligence, which is not, but this is not the point of this video, forgets at the same speed. Only their initial speed or the speed of initial learning differs. That the higher the IQ, the quicker the learning process. But then the forgetting process is the same. Okay. And with this claim, there's an implied belief that being smarter might help you pick up facts quicker, but it doesn't help you retain them longer. So, some people say that genius and a slow learner forget at the same rate. So what's the advantage? What's the advantage? What's the point? Okay, I'm a genius and I forget at the same rate that I'm a slow learner. Oh, what's the deal, right? Okay. So what's the reality? In a synaptic level in the brain, between the neurons, I will take this for some knowledge for granted in biology. So on a purely biological basis, forgetting is indeed similar for most healthy brains. Healthy. That you don't have Alzheimer's or any alteration. So, and you're not just a newborn. So everyone healthy and let's say adult, so you are 18, let's say, and above, then representation matters. Representation of what? Of knowledge. How you interact with knowledge as a human is represented with words, language. We may differ which language we use, or the people who are blind, they use the braille, or people who are deaf, they may use the sign language instead, but it's still the same thing, it's a language. So, how you encode knowledge drastically alters your forgetting curve. You may remember some videos we did in the past that the bottleneck of SuperMemo, should I say incremental reading, is the formulation of knowledge. So when you are a master, you have done a lot of years, accumulated a lot of years of usage and expertise. What will be the bottleneck is the formulation of knowledge. So, in other words, how you encode the knowledge drastically alters your forgetting curve. The better you do it, the flattened will be the forgetting curve. The longer the stability until you forget it. Then, better representation equals more robust traces equals slower forgetting. Easy as that. So it's not just about synapses in a biological sense. It's about how you feed them with well-structured knowledge. And if you remember, the knowledge formulation is a skill. It is not set on a stone in your biology that if you're a genius, you are better at it already. No, it's a skill you need to build with time. Then let's do about more in the context of SuperMemo. Difficulty, that is one of the three components of the long-term memory in SuperMemo. So not all of the items are of the same difficulty. So difficult items are forgotten quicker, requiring shorter review intervals. In SuperMemo context, what is 0.5 and above, up to 1. And easy items last longer before repetition is needed. So from 0.5 to 0. The lower spectrum of difficulty. And that is true. There's some knowledge that is inherently easier to remember. And some that is even harder. Then, I'm not going to put examples yet. We will cover this later on in the course. Perhaps in a 700 videos later, when we cover the formulation. Yeah. I'm smiling because I'm really not joking. It will be about 700 or more. So inside, if you refine or simplify the item, you have to effectively slow its forgetting rate. Because the more complex, the harder it will be that piece of text. The harder it will be to retrieve that. The harder it will be to keep it in memory, stable in memory. without losing details or losing that, oh shit, now I remember partially what it was there, but not enough. So now I miss the point and item is forgotten. So quote, the same piece of information can become easy if it's properly formulated, or remain tough, hard, if it's left in a messy form. Exactly. Not necessarily it's one-to-one. Could be the case that when it's simplified, it's split into 2 items, or even if you push it, 3 items, because you want to be as atomic as possible. So most of the time you simplify, it's still 1 item, but it's not limited to. That means that keeping 3 items in memory, but a lot easier, a lot simplified, is actually cheaper, easier, than just retaining 1 item, more complex, in your memory. So it's not about how many flashcards do you have, how many facts you retain on your collection, therefore on your brain. It's about how much information is stored atomically. The more simplified, the more flashcards you will have per fact, let's say, if this was a ratio. So my idea is that you shouldn't aim to have as few items as possible. No. It's as simple as possible, regardless of the quantity. The quantity is irrelevant. Well, the point is the quality should have to be simple. So the students, learners, and better formulations. You have instinct, but very high level. You have instinctive visualization. Fast learners instinctively break down information into clear, connected mental images. Perhaps it's instinctive, meaning it's not a skill they have acquired. Perhaps with experience, they even power up this visualization. But the fact is that it's instinctive. That's why it's fast at the beginning, because it's like, hey, I have the skill already when I'm starting. Then there's connectivity. Those fast learners link new facts to existing frameworks, reducing forgetting. Exactly. I'm learning something new. It's one step away of something I already know. So I just make this connection. Another user will be doing no connection. It's something new and just it's there, floating there. I can't connect it with something I already know. So in my framework, they will have no links. This is called asemantic learning. And then the result. Those learners appear to learn faster and forget slower. Keep in mind, I think it's semantics, but hey, they don't say forget less or fewer items. It's forget slower. It's not about the quantity you forget. It's at the speed you forget. You forget slower. You won't forget the exact same amount, more or less, but just slower. So the fast learners appear to learn faster. It's a thing. And on top of that, they forget slower. But it's mostly about skillful mental representation. It's about the skill, not the raw capacity of the brain. Quote, true speed isn't about quick comprehension. It's also about forging lasting memory links. If we go back, the question, in case you've forgotten, is that everyone forgets at the same rate? So, if they appear to forget slower, that means they forget in a different rate. So the myth will be false already. So how knowledge representation helps with memory? Minimum information plus maximum connectivity. You want as atomic as possible to contain this fact, bam, that's it. The capital of this country is this city. Boom, that's it. And maximum connectivity. Perhaps the capital city, as I just did, is quite limited. It's a good example, but it's very limited. But if you have more about, for instance, memory, the synapses, you can link with this other knowledge you have. But again, we will see the examples later on. But what they have in common, in a high-level perspective, is that they have good questions or statements, not necessarily questions. If it's a constellation, can be stated as a question. It's a well-phrased prompt, or strong mental associations. Reduce memory stress. It's something that I already have very well anchored in my memory. Something it's very unlikely I will forget. So if I link a new memory to this, it's already have a very strong association. So even if it's new, it will reduce a lot of memory stress. It's very easy, it's very likely that I will remember this fact for longer. Therefore, I will forget slower. But I will still forget it because we're human. So the key is the slower forgetting, not preventing the forgetting. So the more sense you make of data, the more hooks your mind has to retrieve it later. There's one simple analogy. Imagine a rather small city. The one I live has about 140,000 people. So more or less this size. What happens? You may drive and oh shit, this street is cut today because they are in constructions or has been a fire, whatever that may be. That on your GPS that was not present, whatever. So what you're going to do? Hey, I cannot use this link to connect this street to this street. I want to go shopping, let's say. Hey, I have to go an alternative route. So the more I know the streets and perhaps the orientation, because some streets are not both ways, because the cities are smaller, the more hooks I know, the easier it is to have an alternative route and get to the same place, get to the shopping mall. But if I only have one anchor, I only have one link, and then, hey, this link is lost, or I cannot retrieve it, so it's there in my brain, but I cannot access it for whatever reason, what do we do? I don't know any other connection. More or less, with this, very simplified, is, oh man, I cannot retrieve it like that, but since it's connected with more stuff, I can have alternative ways to achieve the same route. So the connection with the neuron is more effortful, it has a greater distance, has to travel a few more connections, meaning it's not optimal, but I can retrieve that piece of memory because it has more associations, it has more hooks. So it's a win-win situation. Then, quote, neatly structured knowledge clings to your memory and chaos crumbles fast. So when it's very atomic, like it's very beautiful, if it was like poetry, it will be cosmetically beautiful to see like in the knowledge tree, the items very well put together, the semantic connection, and linking, if you have links to other elements in the collection, all of that, this will be a lot easier to remember than if it's just like this, some bullet points, like I'm doing now. So as a takeaway, the rate of forgetting varies. So it's a myth, not everyone forgets at the same rate. Despite synaptic hardware, your brain, skillful representation can slow decay. So experts in incremental reading will in fact remember more and forget slower, regardless of the algorithm, because that's a skill. So meaning that this person, even if it has a suboptimal scheduling algorithm, will still be better because of the skillful representation, knowledge representation. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Then it's faster and longer, both at the same time. Like usually happens in incremental reading, it's a victory in more than one domain, more than one dimension. So it's faster and longer. The same aptitude that fosters quick learning also fortifies memory. So I can achieve the same result without comparing to a person who doesn't use incremental reading. I can learn the same amount of knowledge with less time involved overall, and on top of that, I can keep this in memory for longer. So I praise a cheaper price and I get more out of it. So it's a win-win. So over time, you refine how you absorb and store info. It becomes like a second level of intuition, like second nature, that they say in English. Like a second level of intuition. That is not, you're not born with this, but based on the massive repetitions and trial and error you have experienced yourself, you refine and you'll see, oh yeah, this makes sense, it's coherent, but it's not going to be useful. I will forget it, or I won't get what I'm being asked. I will have interference. So you continue improving speed and retention because you refine this skill forever. Forever. You could say you have mastered knowledge representation, but it's something you never top. Never top. So quote, refine your approach, refine your memory. Both pace, staying power grow. And it's your approach. It's not, hey, improve your IQ and you will learn faster. No. Refine your approach. At the end of the day, it's the method you're using, incremental learning, and the skills you get with it. This weighs a lot more than anything else, as long as you're healthy. Remember that. Everything we say is as long as you're healthy. So the myth has been debunked. We don't forget the same speed, the effective knowledge presentation, and repeated exposure can shift the curve, the forgetting curve, to your favor. And if you want to learn faster and forget less, which are both different things, you can learn faster, but also forget faster. If you do note taking, will be the case. Focus on how you encode knowledge, not just the raw memorization or repetition. It's a big deal. But first, we will cover in this course incremental learning because it's massive already, and then the formation of knowledge, which could be for more people because it's not limited to incremental learning. People who just stay to space repetition can benefit from that. So the final thought of this video is that even if synapses set the baseline, which is true, your biology sets the baseline, your learning strategy, the methods and techniques you're using, or the software, determines whether new facts fit fast or stick around for the long haul. If you choose SuperMemo for incremental reading, and you did it right, you will maximize that. As easy as that. We're going to discuss about, is incremental reading just a crutch? That's actually from a comment I got, I think, last year in my own channel. So we'll address the skepticism that incremental reading is only for ineffective learners, lazy learners, that they tried the mainstream, they failed, and then they use alternative methods to succeed. Meaning that a student or a learner that didn't have issues, difficulties, problems with forgetting will not have used this method. Is this tool for developing strong cognitive skills, or is it just a system for the weak ones? I'm surprised I have to do this video, to be honest, but I get the skepticism. So let's just start with this. The skeptic argument, and it's a fair one. First claim. Yeah, incremental reading always is compared to weak study methods, like passive reading, not effective ones. So therefore, obviously incremental reading, the outcome, will be that incremental reading is the best method. Because passive reading is one of the worst, right? But yeah, name whatever method you want that is not incremental reading, and compare it against it. The second claim, which is a fair one as well, is that incremental reading is rarely benchmarked against what good learners naturally do. Synthesis, deep analysis, mind mapping, or one of those copyrighted names of methods from just in song and whatever. It's not because it's virtually impossible to benchmark that, basically. So, conclusion. Therefore, super incremental reading seems like a crutch for people who haven't developed strong organic learning skills, because if they did, they will not need incremental reading. So, acknowledging the grain of truth. Yes, the initial appeal of incremental reading is often its ability to fix terrible study habits. That the only thing I do is cramming like a parrot, and that's it. I don't do anything that is more active, more reasoning based, and so on. Then, incremental reading provides a structure where there was chaos. Incremental reading replaces passive rereading with active recall. By the way, you can use active recall without the spaced repetition and without incremental reading. And for someone drawing into information with no system, it's not a crutch, it's a lifeline. But what is all of this? So what do the good learners do? Let's focus on that. They do, let's say, overlap with some features that exist in incremental reading already. So cognitive science shows effective learners use a set of powerful strategies. Active recall, like testing yourself, spaced repetition, the active recall to test yourself in increasing intervals. Unless you fail, then it will be reset and all of this. They also do elaboration, connecting new information to already existing information. This is gold. Interleaving, everything here so far is also included in incremental reading. Mixing different topics, and in incremental reading you can do this micro and micro. At every single repetition, every minute you could change topics if you wanted. And self-exploration, articulating concepts using your own words. Then where's the core misconception? The critique frames incremental reading as an alternative to these powerful techniques. But this is incorrect. It's not an alternative. It's actually using those techniques. And even more than that. So let's use one simple analogy. You will see a chef, in a kitchen chef, a cook. It's an alternative to cooking techniques like sharing or braising, right? The kitchen is the system where those techniques are executed efficiently. So in the kitchen, I have boiling, soaring, braising, all of the cooking techniques as fancy as you can. Sauteed, mushrooms and whatever more fancy stuff you want to do, right? But the kitchen is a system that those techniques are executed. Incremental reading is not a learning technique itself. It's a method that is a collection of techniques. It's a system designed to implement those techniques. Incremental reading has active recall. Incremental reading contains a spaced repetition, interleaving, and all of this. It's not an alternative. The real comparison, the ideal learner versus the incremental user. So let's be fair and let's compare against a user that more or less implements the same strategies, but without incremental reading. Let's see, the ideal learner. The ideal learner manually takes notes, creates flashcards, I hope non-linearly after he has taken the notes, some forgetting has been done, next day, eventually. Then devises a perfect review schedule for thousands of items and constantly cross-references ideas. This is a full-time job. If you want to do all of this, you will need to spend 8 or more hours a day for that. Let's compare with the incremental reader. Does the same thing, takes notes incrementally, like now I'm adapting this text, so I make my own version, remember the list, I do my own elaboration, my own self-explanation, I do interleaving guaranteed, automatic, spaced repetition is automatic, active recall, I did myself, but it's automatic in the sense that it will appear on my face. So the incremental reader does the same, but uses a software a toolkit, in this case SuperMemo, to automate the overwhelming clerical work. Schedule, interleaving, presentation, all of this. So imagine you have to do this by yourself, keeping track of the sources you're reading, what you have extracted, what you have converted to flashcards and whatnot. Reviewing the flashcards, you will do Anki, RevNote, stuff like that, but you cannot have the entire flow, loading flow, in one single place, unlike SuperMemo. And then interleaving. Imagine that you want to do this at every repetition, every minute. You want to change that. It will be so chaotic to change apps and stuff you do every minute. So the incremental reading user, isn't avoiding the hard work of thinking. Remember the other video in this section, the minimum cost principle. If you haven't watched it, take a look and then come back here. So it's not avoiding the hard work, it's using the laziness very intelligently. They are outsourcing the impossible task of manual organization. This organization that SuperMemo does for you, it will become a full-time job already. Just that, management. And then the actual learning will be a second full-time job on top of that. So then, what impressive results look like? The skeptic notes a lack of headline-grabbing geniuses from those tools. But the goal of incremental reading isn't to create a single flashy accomplishment. It's nothing tangible, can be anything. It's like a sandbox. You can do whatever you want with this. So the goal is to enable an individual to build deep, durable, and broad knowledge across dozens of fields over a lifetime. You could, if you want, narrow down and limit yourself to medical school, let's say, if you want. But incremental reading is not built for that. Then, the impressive result is the silent prevention of forgetting. Is the vast, stable, and interconnected web of knowledge you built internally, incrementally, after each year. It's not the quantity of the knowledge, it's the stability. It's not going to be forgotten or to have interference easily. And it's the quality, everything, every single dimension. Because as an incremental reader, you focus on actually reading the stuff, make sense of the stuff, and reviewing the stuff in a flashcard form. You don't focus on, hey, where do I have this? Let me use a second brain to dump all of this thing. Let me do these links cross apps because I need to use different software. They have to communicate. All of this is a full-time job that is automated in incremental reading. Then, conclusion. Is incremental just a crutch? Only if you see the power drill as a crutch for a carpenter. So if what you only see is, let's say, an app to get very high grades on some specific and artificially selected pieces of knowledge, that perhaps is even passive. You don't have to recall anything. You have multiple choice questions. Okay. Then, a better metaphor is a cognitive exoskeleton. It doesn't replace the user mind. Incremental reading doesn't replace the user mind. It's not a second brain. It augments the ability of your mind. It's a learning method. You don't want to store everything you want, unlike a second brain kind of thing. Then, incremental reading provides the structure and power to handle a scale of information that is unmanageable for the unaided brain, no matter how effective it is. It goes beyond what you can do. Yeah, mentally you could handle, if you read a few books, you can handle that manually, right? But if you read 20,000 articles in parallel, you will struggle to keep track of what you read, which is automatic in incremental reading. So let me know your opinion. It's very high level, and without entering details, I hope you got the point that incremental reading is not a crutch. Not really, but the opposite. But the skepticism is healthy. What you just need to do is to try incremental reading. Try it for yourself. Now it's time for all you need is an index to knowledge. It's especially useful if you watch this video, even if it's outside of the course for you, you don't follow the course for SuperMemo. It will be really, really interesting if you follow, I don't know, personal knowledge management, Zettelkasten kind of thing, and you are one of those people who think that's enough. This video is for you. I will try my best to communicate to you why this is in fact a myth. So why memorizing even the index itself is crucial. You may think that just having this classified in an external memory, your second brain, is enough. So let's go with this. What's the reality? Even the index of knowledge is subject to forgetting and requires repetition to remain in memory. It's just as easy as, in SuperMemo you have concepts. Sometimes I forgot some concepts. That's why I made duplicates that, oh shoot, I had already a concept with this with not the exact same name. Like memory on autism and memory relation or something like that, oh wow. They're sorting alphabetically, they don't appear next to each other, but it's the same concept. How come I repeated the concept? Is because I have forgotten I had this concept to begin with. I have forgotten part of my index of knowledge. Then, why? Why I forgot that? Why we forget this, even if it's just very primal, very fundamental, very abstract level of knowledge? We still forget the clues that link us to external knowledge. And not all knowledge is purely inferential, can be deduced. Some knowledge is faster to recall directly, like Antarctica is cold, or the capital city of Spain is Madrid, stuff like that, rather than construct from first principles. If you don't remember the key, you can unlock the door to knowledge, even if it's just an index. Like, great metaphor. I have a chest with a lot of stuff, but if I forgot the key, where's the key to open it? Or if it's more modern and the key is like a code and I forgot the code, I cannot retrieve what is inside the chest because I have forgotten the index. So let's explain the evolution argument. Brain limitations. Our brain evolved for survival tasks, not the modern abstract cognition. We have already talked about this. Feel free to watch the previous one. Natural memory selection is not enough. We have seen that before could be enough, hunter-gatherers, but not for today's standards because society has changed too much. We are living a lifestyle we are not ready. We didn't evolve for this yet. So we have evolved for survival tasks where we can drink clean water, who identify the animals who are a threat. They can kill us, stuff like that. Not abstract recognition. Like, we can directly flag data as important. Don't forget, and it will be guaranteed to remember it. That's why, with artificial tools and software like incremental reading, you can tell SuperMemo that's high important, high priority. Therefore, I will want to remember it. This is kind of low, so I will remember it. But if it needs to be sacrificed because you have information overload, sacrifice it. Or sacrifice this before that. So I have that sacrifice before this, and stuff like this. We don't just say, hey, if it's important, I will remember it, as we have seen. Then, forgetting. By design, memory discards information that is not reinforced, indexed or not. If I don't have repetition, if I don't have frequency, reinforcement, it will be prone to forgetting. Because the survival tasks are defined by frequency. I will remember what is more frequently a threat to my life, above what is scarcely or more difficult or more hardly a threat to my life. It will be just poisonous, it will be an inconvenience, but I won't die if I eat that plant or whatever. So our brain doesn't make any difference if it's indexed or not. You would like to think it's not the case, but it is. Yes, even if it's crucial, it's very like the principle that yeah, it's the index. Even if I just remember the index, that will be enough. Your brain will be discarding this information, like I did with the concepts. And what I did, repeated a concept. It was a duplicate because I haven't had enough frequency, enough. It was not reinforced. So yeah, I forgot I had that concept at all. So quote, what was vital in the wild doesn't necessarily translate to daily modern data demands. Why do I need to know how to identify which animals there are for the feces or the trails they have on the sand or whatever, on the land? I never exposed to animals, so the only animals that they can be exposed are pets. So, or how I identify that a water is drinkable? I don't know. If there's bacteria, I don't know, because I always drink from a bottle. So I don't have this requirement. It will be good to know, but I don't have this reality. Meaning that now, if I'm kidnapped and they release me on the jungle in the wilderness, I will be lacking crucial knowledge for my survival that I don't have. Where do I get the water? How do I clean it? How do I protect from cold or the animals, stuff like that. Then, concrete example with donuts and heart health. So, donut fact. Okay, so fact about donuts. Donuts are not good for the heart. You may have heard that. Why? It's likely to remember through frequent encounters with donuts. Oh, but perhaps you have forgotten why. Oh, it's the low density cholesterol. Then this makes a higher heart risk than the fatty acids, especially in America, who are less regulated and they can do trans fatty acids, additives that they have been proven to be cancerous, cancerogenous, or toxic for the neurotoxic, and they can still use it. For instance, M&Ms or Fanta, the ingredients are different in America than in the European Union because of those regulations. But the fact is the same. Oh yeah, they are very fatty, but it's not about the quantity of fats, it's the quality of those fats are very low. And this will increase something that this will increase, will influence, that at the end of the day, it will increase the likability of a heart attack. So even if I don't know the middle steps, I know this, right? So it's more abstract, but less often reinforced, unless you're a professional in nutrition. So it's your daily job. So I know that pizza is not healthy. Too much salt, too much cheese, and stuff like that. But it becomes more abstract. It's not that like an animal that it will just kill you. It will create, it will try to eat your life, basically. Or it will be poisonous. So even if it doesn't eat you, it will put end to your life because, like a snake, it will suffocate you, you won't be able to breathe, you will die. Or in reaction with the blood flow, whatever, I'm not an expert on this, and after a while you will die with that poisonous animal. It's very simple. You get bitten, they release the poison, you get paralyzed, you suffocate. It's not that, yeah, I eat a donut, I increase my cholesterol, I die. Yeah, it's not like this, right? You will need to eat many donuts every day for many years until you have diabetes, you have and even though you have diabetes, can you attribute that diabetes to the donuts directly? It's not as transparent. You know what I mean? I hope I make my point. So then, why memorize the rules? They let you generalize to similar situations. Hey, if the thing with donuts, it's the low quality fatty acids, hey, French fries is the same thing. Perhaps the difference is that donuts are also high in sugar. So it's a double whammy. And French fries, they only share one with the fatty acids. And then, okay, so the heart is because of the trans fatty acids, and diabetes is because of the sugar, which is not here. So at least with French fries, I won't get diabetes, but I will get heart problems. Anyways, so then why you should memorize the rules? Because they let you generalize to similar situations. Then A, it's not that I need to avoid donuts. I need to avoid donuts, French fries, everything that is deep fried, everything that has trans fatty acids. Because it will lower. So it's not just that it's low quality and has low level THD. It's that the one that is good, the high density lipoprotein, the 131 at 60 or more, it decreases. So it's again itself double whammy. That it lowers, so it not just increases the bad guy, it decreases the good guy at the same time. It's double. It's harming you in both ways. At the same time, that because of the sugar, it damages you in a different dimension. Then you will say, French fries, then therefore, what about pizza? The pizza that I eat is very oily. It has a lot of sugar. So you can make those rules and generalize. So once you know something is key to trans fatty acids, then what else has trans fatty acids? What about a hamburger? Then quote, a single donuts are bad, fact is easy to recall. Understanding why often demands deeper memorization of rules. So I can know a donut is bad for your health. Smoking is bad for your health. Fast food in general is bad for your health. But understanding this is why often demands deeper memorization of the rules. No. In fact, what is that trans fatty acids are unhealthy. And if you eat these donuts and stuff like this often enough, it will decrease your levels of the high density cholesterol. Nice. It was a good example. Then, index versus knowledge retention. Let's get back on track. So I know where people find details on trans fats. If the mental pointer is forgotten or too vague, you can derive the info easily. You can go to whatever website you trust about nutrition online. Then, SuperMemo's rule helps you keep essential rules and facts fresh with spaced repetition and minimizes the time spent reviewing across your lifetime. So, if I do those flashcards, even if I start from the donut, I will make the memory, I will make the abstraction that, hey, what happens if I eat trans fats often enough? What will be the consequence? Oh, the effect with the high level cholesterol. What happens if I have high levels of cholesterol of the high density or the low density? And I will do just a few repetitions overall. Depends how hard for me is to remember this. But from now on, I will know exactly what happens when I eat a donut. Or perhaps it is my first time eating that thing, let's say a dessert, tres leches, for instance. And, oh yeah, is this good or not? Well, I just read the nutrition facts, I can see the amount of sugar, and with this, oh yeah, this is diabetes, So even your roadmap to knowledge must be revisited, or it too can fade from memory. Because if I don't commit this to memory, I will forget this relationship. Oh yeah, I remember that donuts are bad, right? But this stays there because I have forgotten the link, the effects it has on the good cholesterol and how increases the bad cholesterol, I will just remember what's easy to remember. Donuts are unhealthy. Like smoking is unhealthy. That's it. So benefits of knowing versus looking up. Faster reasoning. Everything is retrievable. If all of my memories are retrievable, I will link that, hey, this new food that I have never eaten, I quickly can perceive is unhealthy for this reason and this reason. So perhaps if I want to invite a treat with my father, has already some health conditions, I will not put this on the table, for instance. So I have faster reasoning, immediate recall, and this supports creativity. So it's A. Therefore, on the spot, I can decide what I put on the table for my father that is healthy and doesn't compromise his health issues, let's say. Not, oh, let me check, oh, shoot, now you're lactose intolerant. Oh, what I do? Let me check what I can do. No, it's, oh, you're lactose intolerant. Pam, 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 pam. You have an alternative, you make quick decisions, and you solve the problem. Because every single piece of memory is retrievable, and it's super fast. Unexpected connections. Learn knowledge triggers associative thinking. You can spontaneously link new input to old facts. Like something that I have learned many years ago, like in the Super Size Me movie from 2004, to take a guess. I never wanted to remember the year. I learned that in America, the French fries, they have like 11 ingredients, but only 3 are real ingredients. The rest is just pure chemicals that are absolutely harmful for you. But why do they do it? It's because for their convenience. Because then they can keep the same oil, cooking the same oil for longer. This is cheaper to cook the French fries. So they can increase the margin of benefit. But why they do it in America and not in other countries in the European Union? Because it's illegal. Because sometimes, I mean, there's some stuff that it's really harmful and it's still legal anyways. But at least some of that is being cut. Because there's science that prove that is cancerogenous, is neurotoxic, and well, it's harmful for humans. Then is another thing that if they know it's harmful for humans, why do they use it? For profit. Because they want to maximize profit over the health of their clients, their customers. But this is it's a different level. It's a more philosophical. It's like ethics. But then you can go to this link. Like, hey, I just linked something that I know before, the amount of chemicals, and I know that because of the laws are more generous, are not as regulated. I make this link. But now, hey, let's go into ethics. And perhaps you start with a donut and you end up with some philosophy. That, oh wow, and actually you attribute this philosophy like in a movie. Now I recall. So why the Frankfurts were packed for 6, but the buns were packed on 8? They don't match. Why don't they put 6 and 6? So you have, for each bun, you have the Frankfurt. Why they don't match? Oh yeah, because you always run short, so you have to buy a new one, even though then you have the overstock. So it's to increase the sales. Makes sense. If you want to increase the sales, it's a trick you can use. I remember this from a movie. Imagine that this something that is very distant, but you make this associative thinking. And you start from a donut, and you can, and in the same, if it was a TED talk, I start from a donut and the health, and I could end up discussing philosophy on the contemporaneous era to make a stretch of this link. Then improved insight. More data in your mental model fosters deeper understanding and better reasoning. So it's not that it's faster and more connected, that it also has more quality and has an opportunity to go deeper understanding. So you have better reasoning, better understanding, better problem solving. Every domain, you win in every domain. If you only have an index in which domain you win, none. Then, the more we keep in mind, the richer our creative links become. So, conclusion. The myth has been debunked. That's a spoiler alert. All of the myths I have here are debunked. The point is how. Merely having pointers to knowledge, like you will be in Zettelkasten, doesn't exempt you for memorizing. Even the pointers need refreshing. You will forget it's there. Your second, you even will forget some pieces of knowledge are in your second brain. That, oh, I forgot what it is, but I know it's there, so I can just check it out. You could go extra layer and forgot that, oh shoot, I had this in my second brain. I didn't remember that. So what's the takeaway? Some facts and rules are worth storing in your head for quick recall and robust reasoning. That doesn't mean rote. The opposite. That is because the school system, a lot of people, memorization equals rote. The blah, 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 blah. You only memorize without thinking, like a pirate. Yeah, that's what you did in the school, but that's not what memorization is at all. And it's required. If you want problem solving, quickness, all of we have said in the previous slide, you need to remember that, as easy as that. Then, what's the role of SuperMemo here? Sustain your index of knowledge, clear facts and abstract rules so they are accessible right when you need them. I have this. I said with the donut, I link fatty acids with the harmful, trans fatty acids. This goes to the cholesterol, all of this sequence of mental models I activate. And from the donut, I end up with ethics, like we have seen so far. So what's the final thought? An index is only good as your memory of how to use it. An index is only as good as your memory of how to use it. Best definition I ever have seen. If you are forgetting details, how to use it, what you have in your second brain, your index is losing that as well. It's there, but since you're not knowledgeable that it's there, it's the same as it was not there to begin with. So combine that index with well-chosen memorized facts for the best of the worlds. And yes, you can use Zettelkasten if you really want to, with a special repetition. You won't have priorities, all of that, but still you memorize the facts. And let's say that you can still memorize your index. So therefore, you keep this. With a speed repetition, you could keep the index on check, so it is as good as your memory how to use it. And since you don't forget, you choose not to forget this, you will keep it on that. Even though it's a half-baked victory. You're capping yourself for no reason. Use incremental reading. There's no reason not to do it. So therefore, all we need is an index to knowledge. Crap. I hope I made my position clear. Let's continue with the myths about incremental reading and SuperMemo. Now it's turn for SuperMemo repetitions take too much time. Is this a myth or is it a fact? So what we will see is why even small, well-chosen daily reviews can pay off. Let's dig into that. So the myth says, let's start with the claim. As the repetition load grows, your outstanding queue accumulates the number higher and higher. SuperMemo demands too much time, meaning the time you need to invest to do the outstanding repetitions that are scheduled that day, making the effort not worth the outcome, meaning that the time investment you do for the, in this case only items, is not worth, with the result you get. So I invest time reviewing material over and over, and thus that doesn't save time or enough time in the future. It's not worth it. That's the claim. And what's the implied concern of this claim? Is the fear of ballooning daily reviews that overshadow other tasks. Hey, if I do review material I have already seen last week, last month, last year, it's time I don't invest on learning new material. More or less that's the concern. So quote, at some point, when all these flashcards become an endless car, meaning, let's simplify. Let's say that now it's half 50-50. Half of the time is invested with old material, just doing the repetitions, and the other half is new material. But as I accumulate more material in my collection, then will be like the Pareto principle: 80% reviewing, 20% new material. And then 1910, until I reach a point that I have to invest 100% of my time just to keep what I have already. Just maintenance occupies all of my time. Therefore, I cannot learn something new. More or less, that's the overall umbrella concern. But what's the reality? Let's start. Few well-selected items. This is taken from the SuperMemo documentation, but it's a good approach. That if you struggle, start using incremental reading, just do 3 a day. Just 3 items a day. 3 crucial items, meaning very high priority, per day. Only this can already yield better understanding than 100 hastily crammed facts. So even if you just do a very low usage of incremental reading, in just 3 months or after a while, you will see the potential already. And this is better than if you do a lot more information, but you cram it. Like in Anki, you'll do, I don't know, a study session of a shared deck, and you can go into hundreds or even thousands in one single day. But you wouldn't get the same result, the same level of understanding, all of that. Then, another dimension, higher retention where it counts. So we are humans. We have a limited storage. We have a limited capacity to recall. We're not perfect. And we have a limited lifespan, and time. So what we want is concentrate the higher retention on what is higher important, the truly mission critical knowledge. Super high, crazy high. Don't try to memorize everything. That is a common mistake a newbies may do. Then the lower the priority, the lower the retention rate will be. And that is exactly what you want. You want this hierarchy. Then quote, quality beats quantity in a space repetition. Retain what generally matters. So for instance, in a video of mine some years ago, I read a book about YouTube, and I only made 8 flashcards out of that book. It's, oh yeah, it's very low, yeah, but has been highly applicable, those high-level principles. And sometimes, in just a paragraph from Wikipedia about, let's say, a neuron, the biology or anatomy of a neuron, with just 2 sentences, I can have more than 8 items already. Because the nomenclature, the jargon, there's a lot of stuff to learn, right? But what matters is not the quantity, it's the quality. And then, for those set of the spectrum, have a person who has just 10,000 flashcards, and oh, you have to spend many years and years. I only have 10,000 flashcards. Yeah, but it's highly applicable and high mission critical and all of that. And another person who has 50,000 or even 100,000 flashcards, but it's just random trivia. Who won this prize? Who won this championship in the sports? Who won the Nobel Prize? The capitals, the flags, Okay, you get what I mean, right? Next. Key considerations. Minute a day strategy. Even on a small investment, like if you do just 3 items a day, it will take you less than 3 minutes. You want to spend a minute per item. So in 1 or 2 minutes, that's not an effort, can lock in essential insights, provided they are carefully chosen. So if I just use incremental reading for 2 minutes a day, that means 1 hour a month, 12 hours a year, it's very low, I will still get something. It's that powerful. Focus on top priorities. Not every scrap of data deserves the same retention goal. Exactly what we just mentioned with the trivia data and stuff like that. Respect this hierarchy. Not all of the information has the same importance in your life. So be true to that importance. You don't want to spend a lot of time or something it doesn't matter, right? You want to spend time on what truly matters. And once it is covered, then with the least important. When this is covered, even least important. Until whatever you go, depends how deep you can go. Then, formation skills. Efficiently structured items drastically reduce the time for both learning and review. So sometimes I may spend more time, or it takes a lot of time to do the first repetition, or should I say, the creation of the item, which is truly the first repetition in incremental reading. You spend time there. It's time you won't spend later in the next repetitions. So in other words, of all of the time you invested in one item, let's put it simple, 10 repetitions in my lifetime. Most of the time is on the first, the creation, and the second, which is the first in the item format. So in those two repetitions, it's likely I have 40% or more than 50% of the time, meaning the 8 next repetitions of the rest of my life will be less than the other half. So put that something, I spend 3 minutes, I will have 1 minute and a half very recently when I create the item and the next rep, and 1 minute and a half for the rest of my life. Some cases will be more, in case I lapse that card. But as an average, to make it simple, that's more or less the scope. So the formulation can make this even easier. It will be easier to recall, but as a consequence, it will also be faster. If it's faster, I need less time. So quote, a well-phrased item is half learned. Smart item formulation saves time in the long run. That's, if we go back to the title, that's going, hey, take SuperMemo items, repetitions. Repetitions is only for items, for topics or code reviews. Take too much time is because you're doing something. Pure formulation of knowledge. You want to remember very many details that are not that relevant, too much at the same time, too much in a short period of time, whatever. One of these. Then, the power of high-value items. Mission-critical facts, like medical guidelines, crucial exam formulas, if you use it for the school system, or top professional procedures. Then, tangible gains. Consistent recall in real-world tasks, something you can apply, and do apply it. Fewer blank moments, more confidence and deeper mastery. Because you have this loop. I learn, I want to retain this, so I create the flashcard, I remove the flashcard, I revisit this memory, I revisit, oh, now I have more knowledge than the last repetition, and you iterate on that. Or perhaps now this is not even required, or, oh, there's a hole here, and so on. You have all of those opportunities. But if it's not applicable, I don't know. I just keep this in my memory, but I haven't seen it yet in real life. I only preemptively memorizing all of the names, all of the Pokemon, but I don't play Pokemon myself. So, yeah, you know what I mean. Nice. So, quote, success hinges not on how much you cram, but how well you anchor your crucial points. You will see people that, hey, I just been cramming flashcards for I don't know how many hours, and I need more than 1,000 repetitions in Anki, let's say. Go in Reddit, you will see this almost every single day. It's not about this. That is not sustainable long term. You're wasting your time. The only solution is, the only good thing is that you're cramming for an exam. You want an artificial high retention rate of a sub-selection of knowledge for a short period of time. And that's it. That's the only thing you can achieve. Then, avoiding the overload. Well, can you avoid overload? Or should I say managing overload instead? So let's start with the wrong approach. You want to retain 99% retention rate of massive, indiscriminate knowledge. Everything I input from Wikipedia, everything I see, every video in YouTube, I want to memorize the details, This is not sustainable. You will have information overload very quickly, and you will just spend all your day memorizing facts of the past. And even though you will still fail, too much volume. What's the right approach instead? Prune low priority items, apply lower attention for minor details, and focus on fundamental material. The hierarchy. The priority hierarchy. For instance, it's almost what I'm doing at the same time with this course. So I start with the most fundamental, the critical mission, and as I progress through the course, the videos I'm doing later and I leave for later are diminishing returns, are less applicable, or for fewer people. So imagine more or less like this, that if I have, I will have items, by the way, as a paid extra. You can buy this collection. I will set priorities according to that. So, for SuperMemo for kids, for instance, you're not a kid, right? So it's only if you're a parent. Perhaps it will be interesting for you, but other than that, it won't be applicable for you if you're not a kid and you're not a parent, to mention one example. And it's not just a priority. You don't apply lower attention. You apply a higher forgetting index, actually, which is the same. But how it's done in SuperMemo, it's asking the other guy to increase, not this to decrease. And you can do this per item if you want. Or you can select a branch, But I don't want to go into specifics of SuperMemo. Just to let you know that you can cherry pick this per item if you want. Think of your memory, quote, think of your memory bank as a primary real estate. Reserve the penthouse for your highest priorities. The VIP room is for the privilege, the most important, the golden nuggets. Practical tips. Daily time limit. Allocate fix. This is just very broad if you think you're in this stage. Because what happens? If today your reality is that repetitions take too much time, you have done damage already from the past. So those are the principles that, from now on I will follow, but the damage has been done already. So those are the tips when you have already done damage. So if you have already done hundreds of thousands of flashcards of super tiny details, and you are not using priorities, you are screwed. You will have to go through those items and set lower priorities when you see them. So long story short, ideally, you'll need to see all the flashcards, all of the items in the collection, and reprioritize them. And from now on, continue. That will be super time consuming. So what you can do instead is just spend one fixed small block, 10 minutes, a day. And that's it. Oh, there are more. I don't care. So I do follow, from now on, those principles, and then once I'm done, let's say, or I consider I'm done, then I spend those 10 extra minutes, or whatever minutes I decide, for this. And this can wait some months or long term, because it will be low quality. Most of that will be low priority. There will be some items that are higher value, but unless I search for them, or I know, they will need to wait. And that's the second strategy, triaging, item triage. So as you see those, mark them as less vital. That means lower priority. Or higher forgetting index, if you will. That is more advanced. Or even delete it. Sometimes it's, I have details for for some commands in some apps that no, this is just a modifier of a parameter of a command. In case I want multi-language, when I download the subtitle of a video. Oh my god, it's utterly specific. What happened is that I failed this flashcard because it's been 4 years that I don't do that. And if I sometime need it, I will check it again. And now with AI, it's super quick. So I don't want to memorize something that at the very optimistic approach would be that I need this every 4 years. But I don't do this strategy anymore for Anki. So now it happens that I don't need this ever in my life. This is one example. I came across this flashcard, gone. I don't need this in my life. Refine items is I'm not deleting those items or modifying the priority. I'm just rewarding or breaking up complex items. Why? Because that is one of the issues that was taking too much time. Because, among other things, remember the third point, formulation skills. I lacked formulation skills back then. So when it's efficient, it drastically reduces the time for both learning and review. So that's what I want to do. They already exist, I'm just improving the formulation. Because now, years later, I have improved. This is especially useful for items who are in a low interval, have elapsed, or they just have 1 or 2 repetitions. So quote, smart, consistent steps do more for knowledge retention than big, sporadic efforts. Slow and steady wins the race. 1 minute a day or 3 minutes a day, every day for a year, even if it's, as we said before, 12 years, 12 hours overall, it's more than if you spend a weekend. And on a weekend you spend 12 hours, yeah, I want to go through the backlog. You will waste most of your time because the brain will be absolutely overloaded. So whatever you have processed, most of it is gone from your memory already. It's better to spend 3 minutes or 10, whatever minutes you want, every single day, incrementally. Slow and steady wins the race. If you spend 10 hours a day, it will be miserable and you won't achieve your goal. It will just be psychological that, hey, I achieved the goal. I no longer have a backlog. But you are doomed because most of that flashcards that now are scheduled in the future will be forgotten. So you're just postponing the doomsday and making it worse. Conclusion. The myth is being debunked. SuperMemo doesn't have to become an all-consuming monster if you pick the right items and master item formulation. Item formulation just make it knowledge formulation. It's the cherry on top. So it makes it even more efficient of what it is. Even if we take out this dimension, just because you pick the items, this is a lot better. So it doesn't matter if you do more flashcards than you can review. Priorities are for that. So we'll do, hey, this flashcard is a detail, but okay, I won't see it again in my life. Like imagine the case I did before. Oh, if I don't see this parameter of the command for that subword, if I don't see it again, no big deal. Because the maximum I could lose is that I once needed this 4 years later in my life and never again. So that's what I lost. Versus something that is highly applicable. That, for instance, how do you pronounce this word, which now I'm doubting myself. It's debunked or debunked? I'm not sure. This is more applicable. So if I had a flashcard how to pronounce that, it will have a higher priority than the other, right? So if I focus on what I can apply, because now, from now on, I will be able to apply this from the videos I will do next, for instance, in the coming days or next week. Hey, something silly, easy, but it's something I can apply and do the learning loop. So the takeaway, a modest daily investment yields robust, long-lasting recall, especially for the knowledge that truly matters, the higher priority. You do the flashcards you want, create the flashcards you want, but review the ones according to your priority, what's called priority protection. As easy as that. Based on what? Your time. Your usage of SuperMemo. If you use SuperMemo for longer, you could squeeze a little more items. But you draw the line somewhere, right? Then that somewhere, you draw the line, it's until there. The items that don't make the cut is because they are not important enough. So you can rest in peace. No trouble with that. So, the final thought. The real secret: focus on mission critical facts, use good item design, formulation, and let the spaced repetition, trust the algorithm, safeguard your memory without draining your time. So what I do when I do incremental reading, just do the flat, create the close relation, adapt the wording, next rep, click on learn, pam 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 pam. And I set a priority. As long as you do this, knowledge formulation, and prioritizing well, everything else is a consequence. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Therefore, it doesn't take too much time. Actually, it's the opposite. Incremental reading is the method that you will spend less time per memory in the long term. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week or a few months, but on the very long term, in years and decades, you will have spent the least amount of effort and time by a huge margin. So it's a very clear victory. So that has been all. And then, whatever you do every day is up to a certain priority. That's it. There is not too much. It's up to here, because are diminishing returns. Let's continue with the second myth versus fact. Now it's time for we cannot improve our memory through training. Meaning that this is set in stone. You are born with this memory, and even if you want to train it, there's nothing you can do. So what we will see is how smarter learning strategies enhance memory capacity. So it's very obvious how I'm presenting this that is already a myth. So first, what's a clip? That memory is fixed at birth or set in an early stage of life. Regardless if it's at 8, the golden, I think they say the golden era or golden stage between 8 and 10, it's set on stone. Like learning a language. If you don't learn the language at that point, you will never be a native of that language, stuff like that. No training can totally improve it. You may have heard of different memory types. Short-term memory, long-term memory. And yes, short-term memory, it's very directly limited by biology. There's nothing you can do with that. There's not much you can do. Yes, it's actually true. But remember what we have seen before, the other myth. What we have seen that the baseline is there, but the learning strategy is what makes the difference. So it goes more or less in the same vein. So William James' perspective, it's been a while. It's been in the more than 100 years. He said that memory doesn't change much, except for deteriorations like aging or disease. Exactly. So for this example, we'll keep people that are healthy. So if you have any disease or anything in the brain, can only be for the worse, and aging is only for the worse. Deterioration. So at best, what you want to do with aging is to decay as low as possible. Just the same as the memory decay. You want to remember more, you cannot prevent it, you can only do it slower. Same with the aging. The brain will become worse and worse, so you want this to become as low as possible, as slow as possible. So, quote, memory is static. You're stuck with what you have got. That's paraphrasing the pessimistic view. I don't know if there's an author, I couldn't get it from the source. Could be the case. Let me know if there's an author for that. Then, let's go with the basic brain level. Synaptic properties. Human synapses, when the neurons connect and so on, are remarkably similar across individuals, and even share features with simple creatures like mollusks or flies. So not even mammals or smaller animals. No, no, no. It's just a fly that is just, I don't know, not even 5 millimeters and very different from us, right? Same as mollusks. You may have eaten some of them, perhaps. So the limits, if you observe memory, at the molecular synaptical scale. It indeed looks resistant to improvement. Little changes over a healthy lifetime. So the quote is that at the microscopic scale, if we see it with a microscope, memory might seem immutable. Good. Then what's the bigger picture with this? Again, representation of information or knowledge. There are different names to represent the same thing. That it's not the raw synapses alone, it's how you organize and encode the language, just the same as that everyone forgets at the same rate. It's a myth. Then, now we cannot improve our memory through training. Well, we cannot improve in a synaptical level, in a biological level. There's almost no margin. It's in fact correct. But what we're going to do is improve because of a different thing. Skill. We cannot, at least today, we cannot achieve that. There are no steroids that instead of increase the strength, increases the memory. At least for now, there's no such thing. So imagine that it will be the only way, or it's skill. A genius, quote unquote genius, is often just more adept at simplifying complex data to easy to remember models. And it's this secret. It can be defined as this thing. It's not that the genius has a more capacity to remember, more gray area, matter, or whatever. Could be the case, but it's marginal. It's nothing significant. And then, with the lifetime, you can even not improve that. What you can do, and what is the case for people who are more intelligent or genius, is how you convert this information from the reality that your senses tell you, from what you see, what you read, what you listen, all of that, and how you process, how you chunk this down into mental models. So imagine, to simplify with an analogy, that all of the meat we have, it's half raw, and I don't have any tool. I just, with my hands, it's hard to swallow, right? I can process that meat, I can eat it, but it's a challenge. I will get tired, my jaw will get tired, all of that. Imagine that someone else pre-cuts this meat with little cuts, like the Japanese. I think the Japanese do that. That's why they can use chopsticks. They don't use a knife and fork to cut it because it's already cut. So therefore, for me, it's a lot easier to pick up, to put it on my mouth, and to chew it and to swallow. And it's the same meat. It's just what we have done with this meat. Same thing. This meat is information. How I model this information. Then, for the genius, makes sense that, everything is so easy, it's so atomic and simplified and abstracted, that it's a lot easier to remember this. So therefore the genius is not that remembers more because it has a more raw capacity. It's because it's literally easier to remember what he does. And having this capacity to simplify reality with mental models and make flashcards, for instance, that are simple how they're structured, is super hard to do. It's a skill that is very hard. And this is the genius level. The capacity to simplify complex stuff with simple wording. If you leave complex wording, means you're lacking this skill. So geniuses build simple mental frameworks, making thinking and memory synergy soar as a consequence. So we have seen that at the end of the day, It's not about the capacity of the memory. It's about modeling data, representing information. Then, memory techniques. So even that is just to make the point, because imagine 1 week course about memory techniques. So even a short training in mnemonics, the techniques about memory, can dramatically boost one's memory, people's ability to learn. Meaning that the point here is that just a few weeks, meaning you will invest just a few hours a day for a few days. So let's imagine 20 hours at maximum. With just this, you can dramatically improve your ability to learn. Meaning, hey, you haven't had any steroid, you haven't injected any steroid. What you did is just changing how you process, how you encode the information. And that's a big factor here. Just by encoding information in a better manner than you're doing now, you will see the dramatic increase. Your brain, your memory will be the same. So imagine me. I didn't want to have put myself as an example. The other day, last week, I had my first ever recording with another person. I was not alone. So what happened is that my flow was not the same. Usually I'm alone, so I'm very systematic. I click this, I see the button, But since I was not alone, he requested a break to go to the restroom, is oh shoot. Then I forgot to press the button to start recording again. Because I never do that. If I stop, because I want to back up or whatever, and then I resume. What's with this anecdote is that even if I have a very good memory in the sense that I have hundreds of thousands of hacks retrievable, I can retrieve in any time, because of 15 years of speech repetition, I still have those limitations because my working memory is the same as 15 years ago. The methods I use and my capacity to represent the information and how I encode the information, how I link it, these are the skills I acquired. But something like, oh, you went to the restroom and I forgot to click again to set record. Shoot, I didn't improve that. Then, why it works? Why memory techniques work? Without mentioning anything, very high level. You break down the information, you encode and retrieve information more effectively. Because how you encode the information will have a very direct impact of how you will be able to retrieve it. So therefore, you can use some techniques, let's quote, to abuse some of the effects so it's more memorable. It's easier to retrieve in the future. Then, synaptic structures may remain the same. No change. You're born with this, or after puberty or whatever that peaks. But how we feed information into those synapses changes, and that is how you improve your memory. That's why people who use systematic methods can remember 300,000 numbers of number pi. Because they don't. Actually, they don't. They don't remember the numbers of pi. They remember a story with characters and whatever system they use. But usually, at the end of the day, they make a story, a narrative. Because for this, humans is a lot easier to remember. And then, with encoding and decoding, it's odd. If this character do something, I don't know, to Donald Trump is on the supermarket and does some action, this in my system has an encoding. Donald Trump, number 2, and whatever. We'll go into specifics. So if, as I remember the story, the narrative, I see the characters, these characters have said one number, this action has one number, and so on. That's what they remember. And that's why they are retrieving. The story, not the numbers. They are like translating the narrative they memorized. It makes sense. So memory training upgrades your approach, not your basic brain hardware, but that alone can yield huge gains. Exactly. So imagine a computer that the hardware is the same, but I install a different Windows that is more lightweight, consumes a lot of less RAM, memory, and even though I have a limited RAM, since I have more available now, hey, I can do more stuff. The hardware is the same. The improvement of efficiency and so on comes from the software, the skill set, the techniques you're using. And what learning is, and what about the process of learning as a self-accelerated process? You could say that the more you know, the harder, the easier it becomes, right? So the more used I am from one mnemonic technique, the easier it is to use this mnemonic technique, the quicker I can do the mnemonic. Therefore, the quicker I can do the retain that piece of information, to encode that information. So first, knowledge handling. Once you master a new technique, so then it's no longer a new, like the Yossi method, memory palace, closing testing or chunking, the master method, there are so many. Each subsequent piece of information attaches more efficiently. The more you use it, the more proficient you become, the easier it becomes. So yes, as a degree you could say that the more you know how to learn, the better you will learn. The cheaper it will be to transform something you read, listen, or whatever from your senses, to process that information and encode that information into knowledge and link it to what you learn. So, a genius, so let's say a person like this that becomes a genius in that process, when it's a genius can even do the same process even faster than when it was not a genius. So the more intelligent, we could say that the more intelligent you are, the more intelligent you can become faster. You become even more intelligent even faster. It just makes sense. So you have the miraculous result. That's why it sounds like cultish, that I'm selling like the panacea, something like that. So people can remember more. You win in this domain already, in quantity. Faster, you recall faster. You don't have to, yes, yeah, no. It's more effortful. You will get there, but it's more effortful and slower. You need more time. So you win on speed, on quantity, in richness of connections, in every single domain. As always, incremental reading, it's a victory in almost every single domain. Leading to overnight improvements, from a mere shift in technique. If you haven't done that, do your own stuff. So I suggest look for this in Wikipedia or ask AI. Try something like the measure method, like up to 100 characters, let's say, and that each character has one number from 1 to 100, and try it yourself. Then making stories, narratives, and being able to remember numbers. It won't be as efficient because it's just pairing two numbers. Then would you be able to pair every 3, every 4, and every 5, what the champions of memory do. At the end of the day, they are not better on memory. They don't have more capacity to remember than you. What they do is they have a better capacity to encode information. That's the difference. Encoders. They are master encoders, or genius at encoding information very quickly, very effortlessly. Why? Because they are experts on that. So as soon as they see a number, let's say random numbers of phones or even pi, for instance, as they are seeing the numbers, they are producing, making up the stories almost on the spot. Okay, so good. When you learn how to learn, something you don't do on the school system, by the way, memory gains can seem almost magical. Yes. When you do the click, you really get it. It's scary. I myself experienced this feeling. I was scared. It's so damn good that when you make the tipping point, it's like the I don't know what it's called in English. I'll research that after the editing. It's scary. It's so powerful that oh wow, it's like I have a crisis, identity crisis. That who am I? I don't identify this as myself. I don't have this capacity. I have never had this capacity. Only that, not only that, that it feels like superhuman. Because especially in your circle, if no one is using those techniques and incremental reading, and you cannot compare, you will feel like, what the fuck is happening here? Yeah. So takeaways. Again, the myth has been debunked. Memory indeed can improve through smarter encoding strategies. Not in a biological level, synaptical level. That is indeed true. We started with this already in the first slide. But it's so damn good that overpowers. So even if I have the same capacity as birth or as a teenager, whatever, when it peaks, the encoding makes the difference. And since even I'm getting older, and my capacity very slightly decreases over time, biologically, it's not even seen in the sense that the improvement of my skills overshadows what I'm actually losing in a biological level. At some point, you cannot keep up. Yes, I'm imagining. There's no studies because there's the longer user of spatial partition is Piotr Woźniak, the creator himself. He's 64, I think, 63, something like that. So there are not people old enough to see what happens in an old brain. That even if you're healthy and so on, if you're 80, you'll have declines in memory and so on. So the key factor is knowledge representation skills. That's why it makes a huge difference if let's say you're an IQ, you are starting this course, or you watch this video on its own in YouTube. And what you have done in a spatial repetition, it's using Anki with a preset collection, with a pre-done deck. You don't do that. You haven't created your own flashcards. The representation has been fed to you. So yes, you could learn more, you could memorize longer than usual because you use a spatial repetition, but you are using this so the advantages you're seeing are minimal. The least amount of increase you can get. So imagine, if you're neglecting the key factor and you still haven't improved, imagine how damn good that is when you make your own flashcards and you make knowledge representation on a skill you use every day. It becomes scarily good. Learning how to break down and conceptualize data, that's the key. That's the hard part. That is what intelligent people will do better than less intelligent people. Not the consequence of this. Then, not the raw capacity, I mean. Practical implication. Even a modest effort in mnemonic or running technique training can significantly boost long-term memory retention. So far we have seen, hey, wait. In incremental reading, you don't have to go there necessarily. You learn this semantically. As you read, you do this chunking and encoding. Perhaps most of the time it will be enough. Sometimes, for whatever reason, memory interference, it's not linked enough with something you know or whatever is harder, then you will need to rely on mnemonics. Sometimes then the mnemonics fade away Like sometimes it's, oh shoot, I remember I had a mnemonic for that, but now I actually remember the fact, since I no longer need the mnemonic as the middle step, the mnemonic fades away eventually because of forgetting. Sometimes in Anki, because how it works, I have different fields, so then I hide the mnemonic, but it's still there in the database, and I can take a look when I click to edit, and I see the mnemonic I used years ago or decades ago, and it's wow. Like, I don't recall anything about that, which is a good thing, because at the end of the day, the mnemonic is an artificial step. That if it's not required means it's the best case scenario. So quote, train the mind to handle knowledge better. The gains in memory will follow. Exactly. Don't train to improve your memory. There's no such thing. You cannot improve it. It's set on stone most of the time. You may have seen, perhaps my example is dated, the Nintendo DS, they had like memory, one game about memory. Again, I will have to look it after the editing because that sparked now. It was not on my examples. That, oh yeah, it was sold like, hey, you can train this so you will be more intelligent with this game. But fact is that the only thing you have done is improving skills that are repetitive in nature. You get better at them. That's it. Your intelligence or your memory is still the same. Because it was targeted at improving memory. No. What you need to do is target the skills of knowledge representation. That's how you improve your memory. So yeah, to put it in fancy words. Yes, the brain biology remains mostly the same in healthy adults, but learning tactics, methods, techniques can drastically alter the outcomes to a scary level to have better retention, faster recall, deeper understanding. Remember, you win in every single dimension. Last longer, can be retrieved faster, and you spend less time and has a deeper understanding, more quality. Win-win. So the final thought is that memory training isn't about rewarding your synapses. It's about harnessing them more effectively. It's about the method. If you're already doing this, you are a mnemonist, but you don't use incremental reading, you will experience still a massive gain. Massive. Because you are not scheduling or prioritizing, which are the other dimensions. Very key, very important that you're neglecting. Once you manage this, oh man, that's when you will experience the best method available to humanity today. I know with AI, they could achieve something better. But for now, in 2025, incremental reading is the best thing you can learn from. So, another myth versus fact. Natural memory selection is enough. So, I mean, we have evolution, we're here, we still survive as a whole, meaning that will be enough, our natural memory. Is this a myth or is this a fact? Then, as obviously, as I'm making this video in the myths section, you can already tell that for me it's a myth. So, my point of this video is just why we still need tools like SuperMemo. I will simplify SuperMemo to mean incremental reading, spatial repetition, So for simplicity, SuperMemo. Why we need tools like SuperMemo to steer what we remember? Why the natural memory selection is not enough? So what's the claim? Evolution endowed us with a forgetting mechanism, something positive by the way, that eliminates irrelevant information and keeps what's important. It is suffice to create modern civilization, we must not need memory crutches. What's the common argument for this claim? The brain automatically forgets only on important stuff. If it's something truly vital, we don't forget it. How many people you may think that says that? If it's important, I will remember it. Usually that's more or less the key on threats of survival. If this is for my survival, I will remember it. That's how we evolved. That, hey, then, if I see that the fire it's damaging me, it's burning me, I will remember this fact, so I don't die next time. Or this animal is very dangerous, stuff like that. Yeah, but we don't have that. It's not about my surviving, if it's important or not. So many people will say, if it's important, I will remember it. This is a myth. We will see why. So if the brain is so advanced, can it handle forgetting perfectly on its own? No. Sadly, no. The reality is different. What's the reality? Brain's automatic mode forgets or retains knowledge regardless of our conscious priorities, often based on frequency of use or emotional silence. Means that if it's very tied to an emotion, the stronger the emotion, positive or negative, the harder it is to forget that. A person you really like, it will be easier to have memories of that person, to remember the name and stuff like that, or for your survival or something very negative. A passing of a loved one will be easier to remember the time this happened and stuff like that, even if it's negative. It's often based on frequency. How many times you have heard the cliche of a husband forgetting the birthday of her wife, of his wife, the birthday of his wife or their marriage date? It's a cliche, meaning that this happens. But why they do forget it, even if for them it's important, is because lack of frequency. Here you go. Then, we already know that's a myth. We haven't said why, but we know because it already happens. So not because it's important, it will be kept in memory. Can be important, but it needs frequency. That's why spaced repetition is what it does. You have an artificial repetitions that doesn't occur in real life, so you keep it on long-term memory. The frequency is decreasing. Every time you will see this less and less often. You do the minimum amount of repetitions. With incremental reading, you minimize this to the minimum, absolute, like even less than 10 for life, for instance. Then, what about modern needs? We can rationally identify certain facts or skills as mission critical. For instance, the NASA, or now the Elon Musk, the SpaceX, the calculations they have to do, they're crucial. It's not just the budget they are playing with. It's just they can be catastrophic. They can explode and pollute or kill people, whatever. I make knowledge that the lives are on the line. Yet these might not be represented often enough for the brain to treat them as vital. Exactly. Oh yeah, this. I'm a neurosurgeon. For this cancer. That, oh wow, it's a rare type of this cancer that has this variation. Oh shit, I remember something was different, but I forgot exactly what it was. How it was supposed to be. Oh shoot, right? This kind of thing. That, oh yeah, it's not enough to treat as vital. No life is on the line, but it's important. That, where are my keys? I'm not going to die if I forget where my keys are. But it's something important, that it will be problematic, fastidious, if I forget where the keys. So the quote, the forgetting mechanism wasn't designed for controlling a spacecraft. It was meant for survival in the wild. Exactly. We live a lifestyle that is very unnatural for us. We haven't evolved for living in a suburbs, in a city, and have a 9 to 5 job, and TV, Netflix, internet. We are not designed for that. That's why our memory and our forgetting is optimized for something else, not today's standard, how we live. That's why if it's important, I will remember it, doesn't work anymore. It will most of the time work if we are hunter-gatherers. Then, evolution limitations, historical context. Early humans needed quick recall of predators. Exactly. Which animals are a threat for us? Which animals are good to eat? That they are easy to get, or they have a lot of calories or whatever. They easier to digest. The routes, the social bonds, abstract knowledge, and then the abstract knowledge, like chemistry or coding or mathematics, wasn't on the menu. Was not that present. Yes, you will have like concepts of belonging, family, spirituality, being death, because people die as well. Yes, you have abstract knowledge, but you don't know what I mean. That most of the time is something concrete. Today, that's not the case. Hey, how memory works with something that is more abstract in nature. Yet again, we haven't evolved, or we have evolved much with this. We still have the reptilian brain, so we are lagging behind. We have a reality that doesn't match our evolution. So modern complexity. We juggle advanced fields, medicine, engineering, that demands precise recall of rarely encountered data, like a rare disease, or a piece of, I don't know, shapes engineering that is one case only. That specifically this would only apply in this case. There will be no other machine or, I don't know, construction precisely on that format, that shape, and so on. Then, quote, what suffices for hunting and gathering might fail at maintaining rocket flight calculations. So what was enough for me for survival is not enough for having excruciatingly complex, long, and precise calculations, like in a rocket. So why natural memory falls short? Natural in the sense without using any mnemonics, any techniques. It's frequently based survival. If you see it more often, the brain keeps it. Otherwise, it's lost. Why? It is a lot more useful to know that these animals are a threat, that this kind of mushroom that only appears super rarely in a specific zone might kill you if you eat it in quantity enough. So if you eat one, could just be poisonous, but not deadly poisonous. But what are the chances? One can happen every 3 days or once a week, a threat of an animal, and the other could happen once every 5 years, to say something. What's going to choose the brain? What is daily, right? So you don't forget it. Then, critical but infrequent. That's the thing. It's critical to know, but it's very infrequent. Certain knowledge is rarely used, but yet critical in crisis or specialized tasks, like surgeon rare procedure. It's something of today's lifestyle. It's very rare to have something that is critical, but is infrequent. We could perhaps think about, I don't know, giving birth. If you're in a tribe of hunter-gatherers, I don't know, 100, how many newborns there will be each year? A few. So it's still kind of frequent. So for the same person, it will be infrequent because you will have birth several times maximum at life. But it's really hard to find something that only happens once a year or less for them. But for us, well, many. We have many knowledge that is very low frequency. And for instance, I have put information on my collection in SuperMemo or Anki before for this that I have never seen. So I preemptively put this in my learning. So I wanted to remember this preemptively because when I face this situation, it's critical, but it's also infrequent. And happened that, hey, it still didn't happen. It's been 10 years, this still didn't happen, but it's critical knowledge. Then, a single memory lapse at the wrong time can cost a life, a mission, or a fortune. If it's a rocket, a fortune, and a mission as well. If it's a surgeon or the hunter-gatherers, it will cost your life. This memory lapse can cost your life. Meaning, with using the jargon, you want what is for survival, critical mission critical, to be 100% retention rate. Let's do some examples. This happened. I was alive when the NASA had some misinterpretation, miscommunication, because someone used the metric system expecting the imperial, like meters, yeah, or like kilometers or miles. It's just with this simple thing that for whatever reason you were expecting the imperial system that only the Americans and very few people use, and was the metric system, they lost the Mars proof. Just for this, millions, and a very high budget mission, just for this. It failed to remember the unit. Or the fourth, same thing, for comma versus a dot. Or imagine a surgeon with a knowledge gap that, knows, no, it's a procedure of 12 hours. To do an exchange of an organ. And just happened that some steps, oh wow, is this before than the other one? Or is the other case? Well, what is this? Oh, so there are many steps, but now you are only lapsing the order of few steps. And this could be critical. Can cost the patient's life. Because it's a low frequency procedure. That's why usually a good surgeon, before the operation, will reread. Obviously, it's not an incremental reader, so we'll use different methods. Most likely, we'll reread and review that procedure, or even do a mock before the real deal, because of the low frequency. So then, quote, the cost of forgetting is high. When the cost of forgetting is high, you cannot just rely on the brain's autopilot. You cannot trust your brain. You cannot trust your memory. That, just because it's important, I will remember it. That was 2,000 years ago. Not anymore, because of lifestyle has changed too much. Then, what is the role of tools like SuperMemo, incremental reading, and so on? You do by priorities, user-driven priority. You decide which facts keep at near 100% recall. The higher the priority, the more frequency it will be presented, therefore the most likely will be near 100% recall. If it's important, critical, regardless of the frequency in the real world. I could have something that I have seen 20 times already in SuperMemo, and yet I still have to see it for the first time in real life. Space repetition. With this, minimizes time cost for reviewing the knowledge across lifetime. I don't have to consult to reread an article or part of the textbook, how to do surgery. I already have this surgery in mind, easy to retrieve, and so on. And I do invest the minimum time for that. So long term, I will have spent the least amount of time possible. If I do, let's say, the operation, a rare operation 10 times across my life, let's say that I work for 40 years, I do this 4 times. Okay, that means that I will need to reread everything 4 times, relearn 4 times the same knowledge. Because I have a repetition every 10 years, it's too much, I will forget almost everything. Perhaps this is kind of edge case, because if it's only 4 times, is it worth memorizing this during all your time? Well, if it's a surgeon, perhaps not, because you have the time that you can invest rereading this. Meaning that it's not a critical operation that the patient is dying. As you are going through the content, the patient is dying. Meaning that you can do the operation, the intervention, next day or next week. You know what I mean? So the amount of repetitions should be less. So the effort, you commit this to memory so you can apply it in the future. So if you only do it twice in your life, then perhaps you have wasted your time. Meaning that it would have been better to just repeat and relearn this twice in your life than memorize this preemptively. But you just don't know. You don't know when it's going to happen. So you put it into memory because it's critical, it's mission critical, but it's infrequent. You don't know the frequency, so the best you can do is to put it into memory. Then, SuperMemo puts you into the driver's seat. No more hoping your brain gets the memo on what's important. You're in full control. Basically, with the priorities, to simplify, with priorities, you're telling SuperMemo what's important. So instead of the brain, what's important for survival is what's important here for whatever. All of the domains you want. Survival, priority because it's for my job. I want my job so I can pay rent. Therefore, it can become second degree of survival at some degree. Because I really care about that, and that's it. It's something I really like, but I don't need for my job or survival. So I have many factors that I'm not even aware how many factors there are consciously, but it's one domain, priority. From the highest to the lowest. No elements have the same priority. So then, with this artificial method, I have solved today's problem. I don't have to trust my memory, my brain, because I'm telling SuperMemo exactly what's important. And it will schedule this according to priorities. Let's do an example. Very cliche, dictionary lookup or retention memory. Perhaps now this is changing a little, because before the dictionary lookup was on paper. It was very obvious, it was too time consuming. Now it was with the internet, with Google. For many years has been on Google, you can look, or online dictionary, But now with AI, it's even more than that. You can produce examples how to use that word. So you're bypassing the dictionary lookup. But the point remains the same. A single peek takes seconds. Every time that, oh, what is this word? I forgot what is this. Over a lifetime, repeated lookups can far exceed the time cost for systematically review the word with a spaced repetition. Exactly what we said with the surgeon. If I only see this word 4 times in my life, it won't be worth it. Could be the case. But if I see this, I know in a lifetime can be massive, I know. 100 to see something, then yeah. I will, instead of asking AI 100 times what was this word, because every time I forget it, I invest a few minutes overall and keep this to memory. And let's say that each lookup is 5 seconds with AI, it's 500 seconds. And the time I invested to memorize this with a special repetition is less than 500. So even if it's very small, I have some benefit. I'm spending less time. It's a silly example, but usually if you do this systematically, the difference is massive. It's not in the minutes. The difference is beyond your lifetime. Meaning that what you keep in your memory, you can retrieve, the facts you know, surpass what you could learn in your entire lifespan without using incremental reading. As simple as that. With 15 years, based on my speculation and my anecdotal evidence, I can guess that with 15 years, I have overpassed my lifespan without using incremental reading. I will have never achieved the expertise I have today. Then multiply that. Extend this logic to thousands of crucial facts. Time saved can be monumental. I'm sorry I just did the example ahead of time, what I just mentioned. So the quote, a few seconds of spaced reviews can outpace countless dictionary checks. Exactly. Or check with AI and so on. That's why you commit some time today to make the effort to encode this information into a flashcard, to review this flashcard in a short period of time, a few days usually, but this then becomes increasingly large, the interval. So then you will see it a few times in a year, and then once every few years. So let's say, to simplify, that half of the time is at the beginning, at the early stage. and then from tomorrow and ever is the other half. So if you use special position consistently, what will happen is that you will save tons of time preventing to look up information once again. So what's the conclusion so far? What was the myth we were talking about? In case you don't remember, the natural selection and the natural memory selection is enough. So our native forgetting mechanism alone doesn't guarantee we retain essential facts, because we live a very artificial lifestyle. We are not designed for that. We didn't evolve for this. If we just backtrack 1 century, how was society 1 century ago? Without computers, without cars, so with horses and stuff like that. And if you go in history, there are changes, but they didn't do as quick as now. That with just a century has been dramatically different. So this doesn't hold anymore. So the key point is that tools like SuperMemo, because of incremental reading, ensures high recall of precisely the knowledge we deem most important because we have set priorities, not just what the brain thinks is important. That's the difference when you select a tool like Anki that only has flashcards. They're not priorities. You're not here. This degree, this domain of victory is not achievable by those apps. You may use other apps, at least today, like Remnote, who has a very crude rudimentary prioritization, like high, mid, low, inactive, archived, stuff like that. That's not a priority queue, are just buckets. Okay, it's something, but you don't get there anyways. So for now, only incremental reading has that. SuperMemo implements a full-fledged priority queue. So you can tell SuperMemo, hey, feed to my brain according to what I have set, the priorities I have set, according to my job, my preference, requirements, my preferences, pam. Not just what's important for my survival. What's the final takeaway? Evolutionary memory is good for everyday life, but for specialized, abstract, or high-stakes information, conscious intervention is indispensable. There's no way you can trust your gut, your memory, and it will be fine. Don't trust your memory. You'll be a victim of forgetting. Guaranteed. Then, the final thought. Our inborn forgetting filters might keep us alive, but they don't necessarily keep our rockets on course in our planets healthy. To go full circle of everything we have said. Spaced repetition ensures the knowledge truly matters, never slips away. So I have a question. If we connect this to the other myth we did before, Darwin and Newton, that they didn't need a SuperMemo. My question is today, do you think any human, engineer, or whatever could have built a SpaceX rocket that could go into the space and come back? What do you think? And then the person or people who did that, have they trusted their gut? That, I will remember those numbers. I will make any explicit effort to remember that because it's important. It's a critical mission important, so therefore I will remember it. Or do you think they had done something specific to put this into memory? How this is done? Because if the employee quits or dies or whatever, then how we do it? It's written somewhere, stuff like that. So remember, the natural selection is not enough for the contemporary lifestyle. Not enough. Enough to keep alive, of course. This is because now our needs is, at least in the first world, this is granted. But it's not enough. You will forget what's important. You will forget stuff that is important, that is relevant. So please, it's in your hands to avoid that. As easy as following this course for SuperMemo, install SuperMemo, learn how to use it with this course, get used to it, get incremental reading. If you don't like SuperMemo, create your own tool. I hope someone does that. And you will be on control. You decide what's important based on the priority. And in different videos you will see that priorities are boss. The most important skill to learn in incremental reading is prioritization. And in the aspect of spaced repetition, it's encoding information, how you formulate the knowledge. Priorities and knowledge formulation, it's all you need to care about. Everything is a consequence of those. It's a win-win. If you succeed on those two, you just need to wait for victories in every single domain. So you may think that if you're more intelligent, you will get most of SuperMemo or incremental reading. Okay. Turns out, many years ago, Piotr Wozniak himself, with other team members, they did a study. So I'm not going to show you the study, feel free to check it out. So I will do a slideshow of the insights. And I think it will be surprising. So first, the got a question. You have the traditional assumption. A higher IQ, intelligent coefficient, might lead to a faster learning or better retention. If you are more intelligent, you will learn faster and have more stuff in your memory. The retention rate will be higher, meaning that if another person has a lower IQ but does the same thing with SuperMemo, will still perform lower. That's the assumption. And in the SuperMemo context, does the IQ significantly impact the performance in spaced repetition and incremental reading? They will get more items done, memorized per period of time, and with higher retention rate? Let's see. So, results in a nutshell. They had a study with 13 students using SuperMemo for over a year. It's quite a lot. If you check online, the research that is done with Anki or other stuff, obviously it's not with SuperMemo. Usually it's very short term, weeks, perhaps some months, a year. I haven't seen anything about a year. So within a year and with 30 students, there's nothing that is strong, that is not statistically significant, that links IQ with any key parameter, anything. Not limited to retention rate or the quantity of or the speed. Any. They actually compared all of the variables in the study. Nothing is significant. But what is crucial is motivation is crucial. Observations suggest that self-criticism, persistence, and motivation overshadow IQ in determining learning outcomes. If you really enjoy what you're learning, you are passionate of what you're learning, this will be a better indicator of your success than your IQ, assuming that it's in the healthy ranges. You don't have any disease or condition that is, let's say, psychological, neural, or I don't know, genetic. So assuming you're just average, or let's say dumber than average but healthy, so to simplify, the most indicator is the motivation. If you really enjoy what you learn, you will be persistent. It's guaranteed. You know the three daughters? So it's like the Polgar family. The three daughters, that they were all geniuses in chess. One better than others, but was the first, the second, and the seventh, something like that, something crazy. The question is, they were geniuses, or happens that they were very consistent, but most of that, they were motivated to play chess. They really enjoyed the process. So if we could measure their IQ, there will be a correlation. So then, why might high IQ help initially? And balding initially. It's already bald, oh my god. Yeah, faster grasp of principles. Higher IQ users may learn how to use software and apply strategies, resolution, incremental reading more quickly. So we could say that a higher IQ could learn how to use incremental reading quicker. But eventually, both, compared to a regular or a lower than average IQ person, eventually they will master incremental reading anyways. So then, what will be the difference? If we have 1 year, okay, at the beginning you will do it quicker. But if we have 1 year, There will be a difference then. And if we start 1 year, but everything is already familiarized with the software or the technique, the method, there will be a difference because that is initial. Meaning, if I remove the initial advantage, there will be a consequence. Clever uses. There might create elaborate knowledge structures, better item formulations, or advanced workflows. Because, to simplify, they have a better command of the language, they have more capacity of abstract thinking, this kind of thing. And potential for addiction. More likely to become deeply invested, hooked, of maximizing knowledge acquisition. Exactly that. Hey, I do more because I want, because I have this motivation, this addiction. Not in the sense that I want to know the best I can, the most I can in my life, necessarily. But hey, I have a lot of inquietudes. I have a lot of stuff that I'm curious, and I will want to know. But what does the data says about that? IQ and retention rate have close to zero correlation. Users with lower IQ or average IQ will achieve similar long-term memory results with SuperMemo than the ones with higher IQ. But the key is here, in the long term. So the higher IQ has an initial advantage, but then this advantage, after the initial period, it's gone. There's no difference. Or it's so negligent that there's nothing, even a weak correlation. Then, stronger influences. Motivation, time commitment, and effective material structuring have a big impact in success. So, if I enjoy, let's say I'm dumb, but I really enjoy this, I will put a lot of time. I'm super motivated. I really like that. So my entropy is skyrocket. As a consequence, I will spend hours every day. And I have effective methods. Methods, it's not something from my identity or from my genetics. It's a method that I'm using. I can use better methods or like traditional methods like cramming. I will have lower performance, not because I'm dumber, it's because the method I'm using is worse. Then if I structure the resources in a well manner, I do prioritize well, I do the flashcards when they become due, and all of that, so parts of incremental reading, and I'm motivated, that overshadows. This is influence more the retention rate than my raw intelligence, or IQ, that IQ is not intelligence. Then, what are the takeaways of the study? Self-assessment impact. Better students often give themselves lower grades, causing similarly lower retention in SuperMemo stats. Yet they will do on exams. Ha ha ha! Good to know. Meaning that I'm more strict with myself, therefore I will be putting grade as 3, let's say, and something that is dumber, lower IQ, they will grade themselves as 5, even though they recall the same thing. I'm more strict on myself, therefore I need a higher threshold to grade 4 or 5. That's why, hey, you have a lower retention in SuperMemo because you said, no, that's a 2, not a 3, therefore it counts as a lapse, therefore the retention grade is lower by average, yet on the exams you got the same score, or even higher than the other person. A limitation, by the way, is that, well, do well in exams is not how you measure retention rate. It will be how you apply that knowledge. It will be really hard to measure because exams is I just do rote and I will achieve a good grade anyways. So that's a limitation for me in the study. Memory variance. Basic memory properties, forgetting curve, space repetition efficiency, differ less between individuals than we typically imagine. Yes, there's high and lows, some outliers here and there, but most of the time, For instance, in SuperMemo, what I have seen in tutories is that the A factor, to my surprise, the A factor for items that tends to increase and the difficulty that are two peaks is it's consistent. Even the person who start clueless, they only do cramming. And they have a lot more to undo and learn from the school system. And get the incrementalism, all of that. And people who are already versed with space repetition, that come from Anki and good practices and so on, perhaps not at the beginning, but later on, after the first year or months, half a year, then I see the stats is, slightly lower, the value is slightly higher, but it's again the same pattern, and more or less on the same range, within the same range. So it doesn't make much difference for some stuff. It really doesn't. Then don't blame yourself. If you're stuck, it may be due to missing prerequisite facts or poorly structured material, not low ability. Exactly. There are holes in the understanding because you have holes in the prerequisite knowledge. Easy. Or the material is chaotic. Could be also the case. So it's not your raw capacity that you don't have a required IQ. Is that what you have learned is not enough, or it has been in a way that the quality is not good, it's not semantic. So it's not on you. Then practical implications for learners. You should focus on motivation and consistency. You will get there. You will become the genius of yourself, whatever that means, of yourself with incremental reading. That let's say that you are not, your IQ is low. I really don't like to say that because the IQ is a myth. It's bullshit at the end of the day. But for whatever reason, let's say that you have something that you consider you perform lower than average, you will get there anyways in the long term. That's it. So just focus on getting time and in a routine and get the skills. That's your only preoccupation. Develop better mnemonic techniques, because at the end of the day, the formulation of knowledge is more crucial than the raw capacity of the IQ. You just accumulate victories, small victories, atomic victories, and across time. The accumulation of thousands of victories, of thousands of days. A lower IQ individual will be able to solve problems better than a higher IQ person who doesn't do incremental reading and keeps forgetting and rely on his or her raw capacity each time, but doesn't accumulate knowledge. Therefore, if your capacity to solve problems or be creative is superior, are you more intelligent than the other person, even with a lower IQ? Then that means that most of this capacity doesn't come from you, but what you did, the method you have used, and the optimum intervals, the spaced repetition, is because of that. You selected, you prioritized the knowledge, you have decided the details you want to forget, what you want to keep, and then you have more capacity to learn, more capacity to solve problems than a higher IQ individual. Therefore, what makes an intelligent person? The IQ? Not really. So knowledge is part of intelligence, reading between lines. So everyone can benefit for incremental reading. Anyone. Even if you think, I have a bad memory. Even if you think you're stupid, you're dumb. You can, not that you can benefit, you will benefit, and you will not be dumb. You're not. You are just using inefficient methods. You have done cramming, all of this. My previous self was dumb. That only my previous self only know how to cram. Even using spaced repetition at the beginning. I was using spaced repetition in 2009 for cramming. I didn't know better. So that previous self had the same IQ as today. We could simplify. Yet the previous self was super dumb, would not solve much problems, and didn't have the knowledge I have today. Have I increased my IQ? No. Have I increased my intelligence? Yes. How? By using incremental reading, accumulating knowledge that I can apply to solve problems, spark creativity, and so on. Then, why motivation matters the most? Persistent usage. If you like something, it's very likely that you will be consistent. You want to do it often. Let's say that you like to play Minecraft. You enjoy playing Minecraft. It's very likely that you want to play Minecraft every single day, and for longer than a person who doesn't enjoy the video game. Same thing. Self-criticism versus growth mindset. Being critical of your performance can push you to refine items, leading to deep mastery. That, hey, that's not enough. I get it, but I felt this last year. Perhaps not because I forgotten the answer necessarily. It's because with the formulation, I didn't get what I was being asked. I don't get the question. So you refine that, and since you do it so many times, so many days, so you first accumulate better skill. You deepen the mastery. You fine-tune this by trial and error. This works and this doesn't. Is that you can appreciate this difference. That, hey, my previous self of 2022, that time he will have rated as good. And now, my 2025 self, this is crap. My standards have increased. Why? Because my mastery has increased. So now I see this item, and for me it's not enough. It's not good quality enough. So it's not that, hey, I'm very strict with myself, I am a perfectionist. No, it doesn't go that way. It's like I am an incrementalist. I have a growth mindset. And since I do interruptions, I will be able to see that. It's when you see a picture of yourself 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Oh, wow, I was thinner. I had less weight or something like, oh, wow. So obviously I see myself every day on the mirror or whatever. But when you do this mental travel, that, oh, wow, 5 years, oh, wow, I was shaving, I didn't have this disease in the skin, oh, wow, it's a backtrack. So it's the same thing. You need this backtrack of your previous self, and oh, wow, I didn't master priorities, I had these difficulties, not anymore. Or I consider this was a good thing, when now it's quite so-so, the quality. This implies growth. And finally, time and quality material. Having good sources to learn from, plus sufficient time to practice, equals learning gains. Because I can have a very sophisticated and advanced method of learning, but if I don't have time, I'm not going to have learning gains if I don't invest time with incremental reading. Or I have a ton of time, I don't work. Let's say I have all day long, plenty of time, but I don't have any good resources or technique. My real learning gain will be minimum, because I will learn a lot, but I will forget a lot. So the real learning will be minimal. Conclusion of everything I have said so far. Higher IQ might help quickly grasp how to use SuperMemo initially. I have this on record, so you can actually see what I did. It's not 40 hours on record, but I don't know exactly how many, but more than 30 hours of footage, raw footage unedited. It's available on this channel since 2020. So you can see exactly what I did and the level I achieved of proficiency in SuperMemo, which it was not the best, by the way, and it's yet on record. So basically, the higher IQ is just an advantage that is initially, and it goes away. Then, long-term results depends on motivation, self-criticism, and effective structuring, and consistent usage above anything else. And those domains are unrelated to IQ. The motivation, the consistency, this is regardless of your IQ. You can be consistent or inconsistent. You can have a very high IQ and not be motivated on learning whatever you want and not be consistent. So the outcome you will have won't be that good. So bottom line is that SuperMemo benefits for all who persistently use it, regardless of their IQ. Intelligence, if you put intelligence as a synonym of IQ, is actually kind of irrelevant for incremental reading. Anyone will benefit from incremental reading. Anyone. Then, final thought. In SuperMemo, the biggest driver of success isn't raw intellect. It's how you shape your material, how consistently you apply the method, and how motivated you are to keep learning. This is the key to success. And this key to success, there's no dimension of IQ. And I suggest this reading from Piotr Wozniak, the same author of Incremental Reading and SuperMemo. IQ is a dismal measure of intelligence. It's a good reading. Welcome to SuperMemo. Welcome to Incremental Reading. My pleasure. If I have introduced you to Incremental Reading, my pleasure. Now I would like to discuss one of the most relevant myths about learning and memorizing. So, instant recall versus online lookups. Why should I spend time memorizing information stuff when I can look it up online within seconds, right? Before it was not possible. Now I don't even need to Google. I can just ask AI, and in 10 seconds or whatever, or in 30 seconds, I may have the answer most of the time. So I will present here in a slideshow why this is a myth. It's actually not true. Not even in the age of AI. So why memorized facts lead to a richer and faster associations? Nice. Let's start with the basic comparison. We have two people. I will be using SuperMemo, and it's the software that you see here, but could be any software that is for learning, that uses spaced repetition, and or incremental reading. Then person A remembers thousands of facts instantly from memory thanks to consistent study. Let's put SuperMemo. Awesome. Then person B doesn't memorize much, prefers to look up some facts online. Let's put 30 seconds, right? That, hey, I have this on my website. Oh, I want to put, for instance, something genuine. Hey, I want to put the donation button in any single page in my website. Oh, how do I do that? Oh, let me Google, okay, it's this. I do it, boom. I didn't memorize how to do it. Awesome. Now we have a question. Does person B quick net search overshadow the daily 30-minute cost of person A invests in memorizing? Meaning that the person B, if needs this again in the future, it will need to Google or ask AI once again, every single time. Person A will memorize this for life at some degree. Let's simplify, 95% retention rate. So it will keep forgetting 5% of what it does. So it requires a few more repetitions. Awesome. Then who wins in the sense that who invested more wisely his or her time? The myth will tell you person B. Reality is person A. Let's see why. The core difference. Associations. Person A, I put numbers here, it's arbitrary, it's just to put numbers so we can compare. Let's say it starts 10,000 facts internally, which is not that much to be honest. If you use incremental reading or at least spaced repetition with years, you will accumulate more than that. Then, this person can potentially form close to 10,000 square associations. So any fact versus any other fact, the other 9,999, there will be 10,000. So virtually instant mental cross-links. That I have something in mathematics and I can link it in a fact about biology. Let's see how do, the form of the flower, how distributes the pattern is can be described mathematically and whatever, and I make that connection. Nice. Person B must gather facts any which time from the web, dictionary, AI, whatever. can only hold a limited set of facts in the short-term memory. You are human. Let's say it's 50. You can have 50 facts in recall time, crystal clear, at once in the short-term memory, which drastically reduces the number of spontaneous interconnections. 10,000 per 10,000, this is 50 per 50 or 10,000 if you want to use external tools. You are still in the major loss. So quote, when your mind hosts the data, new ideas emerge from immediate cross-pollination, not waiting. And it's a matter of, how you call it? It's not, in one sense, you don't have to take the credit yourself because you didn't see that. It was virtually stochastic that, hey, apparently random. Now that I see this information combined, I see the connection. Meaning, if fact A and B were not presented at the same time, I would not have made this connection. This is true for person B. But person A, no, I don't need to put one in my face, usually the new one, and I need that I already know, I can recall, ipso facto, instantly. I make this association. So as soon as I saw the pattern of that flower, I made the connection right away. I couldn't do that. The person B couldn't do that, to follow the example. Then, why associations matter? Instant brainstorming. Person A memory can spontaneously connect distant ideas in seconds, fueling creativity or problem solving. And this is required for problem solving, making connections that no one else did before. So you create something new. Context and retrieval. The ability to recall facts with context, the context is damn key, fosters richer insights. By the time person B has looked a few items, flashcards, element, whatever, person A may have already deduced new solutions. So now, if you ask me, or I ask AI, hey, now I have this goal, how I can describe this pattern mathematically on science, on nature, and it's, hey, wait a second, what was first? How on earth, no pun intended, these flowers flow this mathematical principle? Do the flowers or the plants know mathematics? And how come is mathematically the optimal solution? You may have seen to mention one example that I can, for instance, something happened because I can now make the link and recall that without searching. There was one research by a Japanese that, hey, we want to make the optimal route for the train, right? It's very crowded, very dense. We want to optimize it. So there are the stops, all of this, the route to take and so on, of the subway. So what they did is they used one fungi because they knew that naturally the routes get the optimal flow. So they want to optimize how they get water or the nutrients from the soil. So the ones that are not optimal will die out eventually. So the weakest will die the first, and then only the best will survive, like the Darwinian theory. And then it's, hey, we have a replica. So what they did, is they put like a mold, like a replica, and a smaller replica of the subway, and see what the fungi did. And hey, we know that will be mathematically the best solution possible. So there is an example of problem solving and creativity with something that is seemingly incorrect. That why should I think about fungi if I'm talking about engineering with a subway, right? Here you go, one example. So the insight is associative thinking happens quickest when the data is already in the brain, not scattered across external sources. You can do it, but unless you relearn and have this in the short-term memory, you won't be able to do. That's why, I don't think I've already convinced you, that spending time memorizing, even if it's 30 minutes a day, with a spaced repetition seems like a high cost, but in the long run, it is the cheapest because you don't need to reread or relearn. You only do rememorize what you have forgotten because of interference or whatever. Our memory is not perfect. 95% retention rate most of the time. So the other person, I didn't spend 30 minutes, only 2. With AI, I got the data that I needed and so on. Hey, in 2 minutes I got that. Yes, today. And for this fact, the next fact you will need to search, ask AI, and chat with AI for longer. So the time you invest, it will always be more. Because what you will do it today, eventually with time you will repeat because you will have forgotten that. And in the long term, you will spend more time. So potential payoff, or the long haul, the instant ability to mesh new old facts can lead to breakthroughs, faster decisions, and robust intellectual agility. So tip, a few minutes of daily memorization can yield years of eureka moments that can be replicated by quick lookups. So first, it's not just the amount of time you invest, it's the quality of knowledge you get, and what you do applying this knowledge is something you won't be able to do. It's not just about the quantity. I do more quantity than person A, does more quantity than person B. It's that it does something that the B will never be able to do anyways, in the long run. So imagine a surgeon. He knows his stuff on his niche. He has been prepared for many years, let's say cardiology, can do some very advanced operations. But what happens? He needs all of the knowledge to be in his mind to make decisions. Because it's, I don't know, let me check the textbook or the scientific paper or ask AI, what do I do in this case? No, because sometimes you have to take the decision within seconds. And you have to, no, it has to be this drug, this other drug, in this quantity, or the person will die. Because it's cardiology, the heart could stop beating or whatever, right? So it will be like this. Person A will be able to make the decisions. They won't be perfect because it's human, of course. But in the long term, it will be a lot better than the B that, oh yeah, I did surgery, but I didn't train specifically, so let me consult every single time, right? Even if I need 30 seconds for every single thing. But if I have all of the symptoms together, not necessarily I will make the connection, unless I check everything externally. The medical, as person A, a surgeon, person A, hey, everything is crystal clear in my mind. I memorized everything I have seen. I wanted to remember. Not that you see this, broop, that's this pattern. Perhaps I don't have the solution, but I narrowed down the possibilities of the diagnosis and whatever. And with this, a lawyer in court, whatever else you want to do. Bad examples. Then, practical implications. Innovation and problem solving. The more knowledge you have actively hold, so you can recall it at any time, it's not like cramming, that you forget and that's it. It's easier to see patterns and spot relevant solutions simultaneously, immediately. So not necessarily has to be something unrelated, like the example we did with math and biology. Can be within the same domain. But hey, I have seen this pattern somewhere else. Perhaps in apnea, when you do some breathing, and with exercise, very high intensity exercise, hey, I see there's some pattern repeating here. To mention one example. Rapid conversions, or brainstorming. In a heated discussion or a creative session, person A doesn't pause to consult references. The flow maintains uninterrupted. Because what the person A is experiencing in the brainstorming or a conversation that is very fruitful is that it's activating a lot of concepts in his brain. Person A is, oh yeah, I remember I did this, but I don't even know how to describe it. For instance, chi-square. I always remember chi-square in statistics. But how it is described, oh shoot, I'm not able to tell you that. I keep forgetting it because I didn't make the effort to remember and learn it for real, right? Because I only needed to do this twice a year as a PhD student. So every time I just consult every single time the statistics thing. One example. And to the students back then, the only year it was a lecturer because I moved on from that. I knew that was like the cliche. Everyone I asked, every single student recalled the name Chi-square, and all of them were like me. I can recall the name. I can recall that I did this year in university, and at the same time, I cannot recall what it is. I need to check it out every single time. Hope this makes sense. Then, cumulative effect. Each day, person A knowledge grows. The web, the network grows, amplifying the feature cross-link possibilities. So a person like that Piotr Wozniak that has been using incremental reading and spaced repetition for 4 decades, the possibilities to make connections is extremely high. We're not talking about 10,000 facts. Perhaps we're talking about 300,000 facts that they can cross anytime. So we're talking not 10,000 square, but 300,000 squared, like in the billions or whatever of possibilities. So with time, person A and B, they will be more mismatched in different leagues. They are already in different leagues. But if I am 10-fold yes, or 30-fold yes, it's by no means, it's like, let's not waste the time to compare. So there's no chance. There's no chance. Then, quote, memory is a living network. Every fact is a new node, and each node synergy can spark fresh ideas. For the sake of the video, I have only focusing on creativity, but it's just learning itself. The more you have learned, the more knowledge you have, the easier it is to learn. Because learning is learning something new and anchor it to something you already know. So the more you know, the easier it is to have a neighbor that is closer, right? A good analogy is you move to a different city, you know nothing about this city but the train station, let's say, you came by train. So you go outside, okay, that's the first thing I see. So you start from the train station to your new apartment. You only know that. But then, hey, there's work, it's in the middle. Oh, there's a pizzeria I like. There's the shopping mall there, pam, pam, pam. The more places you will know in the city, the easier it is to learn new locations. Because the more likely will be, this new, and let's say I make a friend, hey, the house of my friend is just 2 streets away from the pizzeria I like. If you know what I mean. Every time it's easier. Same with knowledge. Like language. If I already learned Spanish, it will be easier to learn Italian. Then, let's go back to limitation. Let's go back, and now let's focus on the person B. The limitations of an online lookup, online including AI. Context switching overhead. Each 30 seconds, search break concentration, because you rely on short-term memory, not long-term memory. Means that you have 50 facts here. None of them now are relevant to your new search, so you need to override them. Therefore, it becomes a bottleneck. And you have the opportunity cost. Every time spent searching disrupts real-time creativity exploration. Because you are putting things on the short-term memory, pum, pum, pum. If you are, I don't know, if you are a waiter or a waitress, makes sense, because actually this is what is required. You want to remember the face, and what people ask to drink or eat, and when they are gone, you don't need to remember this anymore. You don't care, right? So your requirement is very short term. But for anything that is meaningful to know, knowledge, this is always long term. So it's a loss. You have this opportunity cost every single time. Unless you can reuse, so the search is very similar, and you can reuse most of the 50 facts you have in the short-term memory, you need to wipe it out. So inside, searching a single fact is easy. more than ever before. Searching and sustaining 20 facts simultaneously is not that easy. Your mind cannot hold them all. But what happens is that the mind is extremely efficient and you will forget. And it's so well done that you yourself don't become aware of the forgetting you do. You forget so much constantly during the day and in the long term that you're not aware of how much you forget. If you had a software that logs everything you ever knew, so I ask you a question and you know the answer and stuff like this, and then across time, I show to your face, hey, you had known all of this that now you don't. You will be able of how hundreds of thousands of facts you are forgetting. And that's why person B can still be neglecting the memorization. Because he's a victim of forgetting himself or herself. Therefore, has no chance, unless you use a software like this, has no chance to become aware of the forgetting process. That's why it's undermining. It's not aware of the massive amount of forgetting. That's why it's not a big deal. Yet it is. You just are not aware of it. Conclusions. Instant lookup versus instant recall or online lookups is not just about the speed, as you may think, that the person A has an advantage because you recall from memory, not from searching. It's an advantage, but it's not the main advantage. It's about the connections you form. This has a lot more value. And the daily memory investment, even if spending consistent time memorizing core facts, it's tedious or it's like paying tax, let's say, can pay off exponentially in creative or knowledge-intense fields. So in the long term, it's the cheapest. It's like paying mortgage. Yeah, but at the end of the day, in the long term, I will have an apartment for myself that is paid. I own it. And the other person, the person B, no, I'm just renting. It's a lot easier. There's no hard commitment. I can change next year to a different apartment and so on. But I keep forgetting the prior apartments, if this makes sense. To make some sort of analogy. So 3 decades later, I don't own any apartment. I have been paying only rent, right? Final thought. Instant recall is more than saving 25 seconds. It's about pulling spontaneous insight by bridging thousands of memorized notes in real time. For instance, I have been using incremental reading properly for about 5 years. With this, and previously about 11 years of spaced repetition, 16 oral. This year 17, I think. It will do. Just counting the last 5 years, it's more than enough. So as a person A, what I experience now when I learn something new, that I think is crystal clear, makes total sense, that, hey, I saw one random YouTube video about Oxford versus, it was recommended, Oxford versus Cambridge University. Some kind of trivia questions, which I don't care about trivia, but one of the questions was very obscure, to answer one language, Romance language, and it was my native language, Catalan. And that sparked my interest just because of the question was about the language, not anything else, right? But then I actually struck my interest, so I kept going a little more. So there were more trivia questions, some super obscure that I never heard of those people or those pieces of art. But when they said something, it's random, but now I can see connections, right? Now I kind of forgot because I didn't pay much attention. It was not relevant. Something about history, monarchy, something like that, right? A king, something that's not of my interest. But hey, makes sense because in that region of that country, on winter it's very cold. Therefore, survive and the average people only read vegetables, roots. So it was tough to survive, and this explains the cuisine because They use a lot of spices. Why? Because it was painfully dull. It was just watery with earthy taste. So they add a lot of spices to compensate that, and there were still nutrients on those roots. So even if the question is about monarchy and history that I don't care, hey, I can relate because what I know about geography, the weather, and nutrition. And you can see, hey, you make all of these encompassing relationships. I'm not just like B, able just Googling this and get the solution. Oh, it makes sense that in, I don't know, 800 years ago, they decided this and that, and they valued this and that because of their reality. I don't want to extend on the example. So if you go to the Caribbean, that they don't experience cold temperatures and so on, it's very likely they never did that, right? It's one of the examples that, oh wow, person A and person B make a really big difference. And the end point, and the conclusion, is that the person A is not just, it will have a better outcome at the end of the day, is that it's a lot more pleasurable because everything is meaningful, or most of the stuff will be meaningful. It's not that I'm just, look, okay, pam, because it's my job, 9 to 5 job or whatever, or I needed that. No, it's something that is like a movie. It makes sense. You may like it or not. Like, for instance, the monarchy, for me, it's something boring. I don't like it. But since I have all of the movie, the nutrients with the cuisine and all of this, hey, it's a lot better. So who wins? Instant recall. It's not a myth. And if you don't trust it, do it yourself. I know it's a big ask because I'm asking you, hey, spend 30 minutes a day for a few months at least. So you see the first layer of the iceberg. It's a hard ask to do. But if you are not convinced, you are skeptical, feel free to be skeptical. There's no other way, no better way than to do it yourself and experience it yourself. And as always, you can get tutoring or coaching if you want to get the fast track. So basically, I'm going to present if learning can become an addiction. So I have pondered this question. Can learning be an addiction? You enjoy it so much that it becomes too much? Let's see. So we have the your perspective as the SuperMemo user, but keep in mind this is true regardless of the software you may use. So the reality is that the life becomes entirely centered around SuperMemo. So everything that I do now, the videos I watch from YouTube, will be through SuperMemo most of the time. Everything that I read will be through SuperMemo. Books, articles, whatever. That means that now everything is centered through SuperMemo. Then we have the filtering mechanism. Every life decision, jobs, transfer, social life is filtered through one question. How will this affect my ability to do repetitions? This could be the case if you have been an Anki user or you are an Anki user. You may have experienced this on the layer of do the repetitions. With SuperMemo, because of incremental reading, goes even beyond that. It's much, quote unquote, much worse. Meaning that, A, I will not do action A because it will consume time and I could not do my repetitions. So I will start going an event with my family so I have time to do my repetitions today. This kind of thing. Then the external brain. The user considers the database a second brain, sometimes carried on a thumb drive around the neck. This is now obsolete, but the thing you get now as a metaphor, if we will be a decade in the past, it will be like this, right? That the second brain is like you carry it with you on a USB drive and so on. Now you just do online backups and that's it. So then the progress. 6 months. You reach a monstrous goal of inputting knowledge, or I don't know, so a lot of items. This is just to put some numbers because it depends a lot, right? The important thing is that I feel like I have gone to college 3 times, in the sense that I have the knowledge of 3 measures. Analogy. Carrying the thumb drive, or online backup, is like carrying a physical backup of your own mind. Losing it feels like not losing a file, but like a lobotomy. Lobotomy was a very intrusive operation to your brain. It's to more or less make it very dramatic, right? That someone is robbing part of your brain, to put it in simple English. So what's the diagnosis? It's addiction or it's compulsion. The no harm rule. Some researchers argue no harm, no addiction. Meaning, in order to be considered an addiction, you have to experience a harmful effect at any degree. Then, if we call it compulsion, the behavior lacks key addiction markers. There's no tolerance, satisfaction doesn't diminish, it's not reduced, there's no lack of control, and no desire to hide it. Actually, the opposite. Sometimes it's pride that I want to show this, I want to show off, to brag about this. Actually, the opposite. That I feel shameful, I hope no one sees that, and so on. And what's common? The withdrawal symptom. Like smokers, when they stop smoking, they have the withdrawal symptom. Very common. Then, the user admits they will be suicidal, to be dramatic, if they lost access, which is a warning sign of what? Of dependency. That it's so ingrained that I cannot consider living without it anymore. That's why it's suicidal. But not because I will take my life, it's because I consider I cannot live with it. That's why it's still metaphorical. Not for some people, but you know what I mean now. Then, the genetic factor, the rage to learn. You know, there are different personality traits. No, not everyone is the same. So we have biological roots. Compulsive behaviors often run in families and have a genetic basis. For instance, my family is the opposite, but there's a lot of patience. Most of my parents, most of my family from that side is very patient. And from my mother's side, could we say, to simplify, it's the opposite. They are more like impulsive, right now, instant notification, and so on. They just inherited those traits. And with those traits, it will affect your behavior. Then we have the outlier. Most friends will never acquire this habit, regardless of the exposure. SuperMemo, in this case, or Anki, or those apps, are freely available. Even SuperMemo, you have a free version. You just install it, and that's it. And even if more people will do it, this is just a huge filter. Not everyone will be addicted or depend on it, right? You are an outlier. Then, the gifted, quote-unquote gifted trait. The rage to learn is a primary characteristic of a gifted children. This endless curiosity, which is something good, but again, it can become an overdose. And I'm guilty of this, but I will tell my experience at the end of the video. And then we have the anti-entropy. Entropy is the chaos, the disorder. Humans have a biological drive to organize chaos into order. Art, models, structures, and so on. The user finds beauty in the neat structure of the knowledge, according to their preference, because it's something subjective. So inside, your compulsion isn't necessarily a defect. It is an amplified expression of the human drive to create order. So it's not something that can be considered negative, you need to solve, to delete. No, it's something that is common, it's just exacerbated, if you want it, with negative connotations. We just seek order, the anti-entropy. Then, we have disaster versus greatness. There are two paths, and they're very, it's a dichotomy. You might be heading for disaster, social isolation, and all of this, jobless, that means you will be broke, da da da. Or the opposite, you will experience greatness in the sense of innovation because of the very deep, prolonged, systematic exposure to knowledge and learning. You could make connections that no one else did before, and you have innovated. That could be money, that could be fame, or just self worth that you have contributed to society in a big deal, regardless of the income and whatever. So then, the historical context. Many great inventors and scientists live with similar compulsions, often miserable personally, but beneficial to humanity. Name any scientific person you recall now. It's very likely this person was miserable in his or her life, but contributed to humanity in a massive deal. And there's no need to go to the STEM, to physics, mathematics, and so on. Something like music also plays a role. Doesn't have to be, my point is that it doesn't have to be with numbers necessarily. For instance, Mozart, Beethoven, something like that. Some of them, their life is, oh my god, it was a pain, a tragedy, right? But the contribution to humanity lasted centuries. It's a big deal. Big deal. And if you went to STEM, perhaps you said Tesla, something like that. Same thing. I don't want to extend here. I want to keep it short. Then let's continue. The determining factor. How well you rationalize your attitude and employ it in knowledge. This is key and will make a difference if you go to the greatness or to a disaster. Let's go. So what's the solution? It's P-PC balance. What does that mean? P production and PC production capacity. So the balance is production over production capacity. You need to follow this to find this balance. Then avoid the art of the art's sake. Learning for the sake of learning with any meaningful purpose. Goal-less. You do not learn just to see numbers go up. This is a vanity thing to do, and because of software like Anki or SuperMemo, it's because you see artificial metrics accumulating. Hey, I can tell you, I have memorized 100,000 facts. I can tell you because I see the number. I can tell you how many repetitions I did. That's the last slide. That's why now I will inject my own stuff. So I will make it biased from now on. Hey, I have a video, I think 1 year or 2 years ago already, that I did more than 6 million repetitions in Anki. It goes this way. Most of what I did, it was cramming. So unnecessary repetitions for short-term memory retention, for exams basically, that contributed nothing to the long term, absolutely zero. Or vanity, that I memorized a lot of vocabulary or very obscure Japanese kanji for no reason. Zero applicability. But what happens? Following the Stephen Covey's principles, I was having a lot of production, huge production, but very low production capacity. So here I had thousands, hundreds of thousands over something very small, because the actually doing things, being creative, helping others, or working, so applying it in life, is very little. When I realized, hey, I memorized more than 6,000 expressions from a few centuries ago in Japanese language, that when I Google the few results, the few hits I get is from dictionaries. And what's even worse is that I'm not fluent back then, and even today, I'm not fluent with modern Japanese. I went so to the rabbit hole that no. Let me stop the modern language. Let me go to the void to increase the numbers because it was very easy to create the flashcards for that. I hope with my own example, general example, you get the meaning. That basically, more general is you get a lot of knowledge, facts that have no applicability, just for the sake of learning. Because you can do it. It was possible 2 centuries ago, yes, but we haven't had a computer that computes all of this for you. It was manually. You can do it manually, yes, it won't be as efficient. So now it's easier, not just because of the tool, it's how easy it is to get information, unlike before. Then, the prescription. So if I was a doctor, what do I prescribe to you to solve this problem? Ensure learning is targeted at specific productive goals and not just hoarding facts. I have been guilty of this. To the point that especially when I graduated, that I don't have exams anymore. Then, hey, let me do the periodic table. For no reason. It's because it's memory intensive, right? It's easy to do. Even though I don't need it. Let me do this, let me do that, and then I actually Googled what there is to memorize. I was running out of stuff to memorize because I was memorizing for the sake of memorizing because, hey, this works. And I memorized, I don't know, the language domain in ASO standards, something obscure, of countries I never heard, or even part of countries that first time I see this in my life. Why am I memorizing the domain if I don't even know the country or the chunk of the country? It becomes so silly. It becomes an obsession. If you remember what we have seen, it becomes an addiction. Why? Because there is harm. I was isolating myself every single day. It was all day long. I was getting knowledge to put into flashcards or reviewing the flashcards I already had. All day long. That means not spending time with friends, socializing, no girlfriend for many years, because I was putting that on top. So yes, I can tell you, I had more than 100,000 flashcards. If now I will put everything together, it will be more than 2,100. Even beyond that. But at what cost? First, very high. And second, what did I get? What was the outcome? Did I got a greatness or innovation? No. I went to social isolation and the disaster. Among other things, but more concretely, social isolation. I have been very guilty of many mistakes, and to a very large extent, you may not comprehend how much I spent of what I said, because I have the stats in Anki, more than 3,200, I think, hours just reviewing the flashcards, not taking into account creating them, which I created manually more than 100,000 myself. Manually. Oh my God. That's why now, it's been 6 years already, I changed the scope to go to greatness. And yes, before giving the analogy, I was, can learning become an addiction? Yes. In the sense that it's harmful, it's not helping you in any positive way. You're learning, it's real. So scientifically, you can recall more stuff, more knowledge, and accumulating knowledge can be considered a form of learning. But the lack of applicability Are you sure this is learning? Are you sure this is worth your time? Or you do it because you're a victim? You're just addicted, and I need my daily dose. I don't care how stupid or random the knowledge is. I need my dose. So an analogy, good, easier to understand. So you're spending all of the time shaping your acts. That will be memorizing, SuperMemo, Anki, whatever you use. Then you must ensure you actually spend time cutting down trees, equivalent to using the knowledge, or you will have a razor sharp blade of a cold house and a cold house. Imagine it's even Minecraft. I hoard and hoard facts. That means I accumulate and accumulate a lot of items, a lot of axes. But if I never use the axe properly, using the knowledge, applying the knowledge, I will never have wood in my inventory. So what's the point of just accumulating axes or sharpening the axes if I never use them? I just store them in the house like storing facts in my brain. You are just a victim of an addiction. That could you think, hey, it's positive because being addicted to learning it's better than I don't know some drug? Well, yes, I do agree, but it's still an addiction. So remember, the solution: ensure the learning is targeted to some specific goal, whatever this goal is. Create a software, find a solution for some problem, whatever. Find something, a goal, and learn whatever it requires for that goal. There is a purpose. If you struggle with this, contact me. I can do some coaching with this because I have been on the verge myself. That first is the dilemma. Everything I have done, all of the time I have invested, which is not going, I'm not getting it back. It's also what I sacrificed. The years I enjoyed life is not going to get back. But not just that. Are you telling me that what I sacrificed, let's say I sacrificed this to have an Ivy League diploma. Okay, at least I will have a better job opportunities, which leads to more income, whatever. At least you sacrifice something temporarily, even if it's in some years, for something else. Okay. In this case, no. You sacrifice this, and then it's for what? For nothing. Only if there was a very niche, customized trivia test just for you. So you could demonstrate, hey, I'm able to recall all of these things. If this does not happen, you will become aware you have wasted your time for nothing, and in reality is you were addicted. I will explain in better detail my own case as a podcast episode, but not here. I already added my 2 cents, or perhaps more than 2 cents here. And if you don't want to send a message publicly, feel free to contact me privately. Link in the description. The ways you can do that could be email, Discord, Twitter, or whatever. But I'm here to help. The first step is the awareness. So now it's time to discuss. Let's see if it's a myth or not. If SuperMemo is for perfectionists or not. So we have a dilemma. The perfectionist dilemma. There's a conflict because perfectionists often struggle with the apparent chaos of incremental reading. One thing. And on top of that, it's SuperMemo. Keep in mind the title says SuperMemo, not incremental reading. Why? Because you will struggle a lot more about the software rather than the method. Then, friction points, like it feels wrong to leave a badly formulated close deletion, like what I call the monster close deletion, behind and jump to the next topic. Because even if you have a good quality at the end of the day, it's after a few repetitions, not immediately. And the more immediately you want quality, the less incremental you are. And what's the impulse? The desire to stop, polish, edit, and perfect the text right now, before moving on. exactly the opposite of an incremental reader will do. That's why it's the dilemma, right? Analogy. It is like a writer refusing to write the second sentence of a novel until the first sentence is grammatically flawless. The result is often a perfect first page, but never a finished book. Nice. So let's redefine perfection. What's the real goal? The true perfectionist in SuperMemo isn't about the beauty of the flashcard. It's about the beauty of the mind. So if I ask, let me repeat this. I'm not asking to a perfectionist, what is perfectionism in SuperMemo, according to you? No, that's actually a wrong thing. What is, strictly speaking, perfectionism in SuperMemo objectively will be the beauty, it's about the beauty of the mind, not the flashcard. Meaning it's on the user's mind, not in the software. What does that mean? Perfectionism could be computed of maximum quality of knowledge, quality, not quantity, plus minimum time. This equals perfection. So I get the most useful knowledge that I need with the minimum time and effort possible. That is perfection in incremental reading. But perfectionist, it will tell you, no, for me that is compliant according to my conventions, that is this color, that it looks like this. This is just making the beauty of a flashcard. That's why we need to redefine perfection. Therefore, we need a shift. You, in case you're a perfectionist, must switch your metric of success from how clean is my collection to how fast I am learning. Because if I spend time making things pretty, reformulating according to my patterns and whatever, I'm not maximizing the quality of the knowledge, is the same, and I'm spending actually more time. So I'm actually lowering the perfection in this sense. The more time what is in the software is more perfect, the less perfect the learning in my mind. Then, the rule of deferred optimization. What we mean by that? Let's go by layers. The tactic. When you create a closed you execute it and move on immediately, unless there is some outlier case that you need to go there and edit manually because you know already you lack context or how you created the item, whatever. But rule of thumb, you create the closed and you will wait for the next repetition. The logic rule. The mental act of choosing the keyword creates a sufficient memory trace because you do flashcards manually. And creating the flashcard, even if it's indirect, that I only select what will be the answer, this is a learning event. If I use AI to generate it, there's no learning event. There's a reading event. It will be like doing an extract, not a closed. Next rule, the waste. Perfecting the sentence now is the art for art's sake. We have covered this in the dilemma, can learning be an addiction? This creates a pretty looking card, or satisfying how it's written if you want to add, but adds zero to memory value at that moment. I'm spending extra time, that perhaps at the best case scenario possible, it will help me, remotely help me. But most of the time, it's time that can be neglected. What's the fix? Improve the wording only when you see the card again during a review, so the first repetition. Or the repetition that you lapse it, depends on your strictness. The first review will be the least friction. And waiting for lapsing, it will be being more flexible. But here there's a golden nugget here. The perfectionist will edit the closed just in case. And the non-perfectionist, the true incremental reader, will do it in need. So I will wait for the need to do it, not just in case. Therefore, all of the times you have reformulated the clause just in case and later was not required is time that you lost. Not just this, that if you do it iteratively, it's even better. There are even more perks than if you do it at the first day. Not the scope of this video, but just to let you know that you are wasting time in more than one dimension. So what's inside? Minimum work for maximum memory effect. Do not polish a car if you aren't used or going to drive it yet. So imagine that where I live, I have everything, well, it's actually true. Most of the stuff is accessible in walking distance. Unlike America, right? So I can go to the supermarket, any store, shopping mall, hospital, pharmacy, anything, it's in walking distance. What I cannot have in walking distance is, I don't know, something specialized, like IKEA, if I want furniture, something like this, right? So imagine that I have a car, and I clean it every day, so it's spot on clean. But yeah, perhaps I only use it twice a month. Then what I will do is clean it before I use it. And that's it. Then, chaos is the raw material. Chaos is the raw material. It's something we cannot avoid. The web is often called garbage dump for information. Everything is chaotic, there's wrong information, there's fake data, and so on. A chaos. You have a protocol. Just HTML, HTTP are the perfect rules. This allows us to navigate a chaotic web, and incremental reading is set for perfect rules for mining it. You will have redundancy, contradiction of information, but not just on the internet. If you go into science, you will have scientific papers that contradict each other, and to the point that they state the opposite. Eating meat is healthy. Eating meat creates cancer and whatever. Both cannot coexist, both truths, right? Then the process. You take the chaos of the web, filter it through a strict rules of the algorithm, and produce the golden result, which is wisdom. You convert the information that is the chaos to knowledge, and iterating on the knowledge and using knowledge to acquire more knowledge, you will have wisdom. So the lesson is, don't fear the messy input, trust the clean output. The input will always be messy. There's nothing you can do to avoid that. You don't, even if you spend all of your life, you don't do anything else than that, you will not even do the minimum effect in reality. You will need to live millions of lifetimes to have a meaningful effect. Therefore, there's nothing you can do. Then, the slow lane option, the choice. If you have anxiety of imperfect clauses, is too high, you can choose to formulate them perfectly right away. Or use AI, that, okay, I do my clausolation, and then I use AI to make it pretty, or to convert it Q&A that is solid. It's well formulated and so on, even though they're not my words. There's a trade-off. The system will still work, but you will learn at a significantly lower speed. But it's a trade-off, in the sense that you have to give up, which will be doing nothing, or doing traditional learning, that it will be close to nothing at the long term. You just do something slower. That I have my car, but I only go with the first gear. Okay, it's better than nothing. And it's faster than walking. There's a lot more power that I'm not using with my car. There's a lot more power in incremental reading that you're not using, but you have some degree. That's why it's called the slow lane. And at any point, you can do this transition. I have experienced this with tutorees and people. They were guilty of perfectionism before. So then they start with incremental reading, and wow, this is triggering my perfectionism every single day. Every 5 minutes, I'm pushed with this, right? So they moved on. No. They moved on again. They tried, they moved on. Then with me, hey, let me help you. Let me do the slow lane. After a while, perhaps they still move on once and they can come back. It's not just that you keep it at once. And later, okay, it's been long enough that I have seen how it works in the long term. This actually works. And very gradually, you will lower the tolerance. That, okay, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. It's not a monster close relation. And with time, you will lower and lower your threshold. Could be that it's still higher than the average person. Okay, so I don't use all of the gears of the car, but at least now I use up to the third gear. It's a win. Then, the result. The cars may look satisfying, but knowledge acquisition rate will drop. The perfection in incremental reading is get the most knowledge possible, but filtered from the highest quality to the lowest quality, priorities. So based on my time, I get the highest knowledge possible, maximum wisdom with the minimum time possible. Because there's information overload. I cannot learn everything I want to. This is perfection. And this perfection in your mind will look like crap on your collection. The formatting will be lost. You don't spend time with templates to make it pretty with bolding and so on. It will look like crap. Your knowledge tree may be chaotic, impossible to understand what you have done in the past, whatever. Because what is close to perfection, or built to perfection, has been to your mind, not in your collection. So to wrap up the video, it is the perfect learning results that is the perfect learning results that should be fit. So to wrap up the video, it is the perfect learning results that should fit your perfectionist needs, not the perfect look of the learning material. And if you want another analogy that came to mind now, it's a pity, not when I was preparing the video. It's like when you want to marry someone for life, you want a significant other, you look at perfection in the sense that you want the best match possible, right? Because you want to be happy the entire life, not only the first 5 years, right? The analogy will be that the perfectionist dilemma will get all you want. Could be external, like how beautiful it is, the height, whatever you want to look for. And the perfectionist, in reality, is looking what you need, not what you want. What you need will be stability, acceptance, and complement each other with each other's defects, biases, and whatever. Same thing. If you're a perfectionist, don't do what you want. You will do what you need. And usually, what you need is not what you want. Until you realize it. Those are my 2 cents. And as always, if you struggle with perfectionist, you can get not tutoring, but mentorship. Well worth the experience. Now I want to focus on at what age does SuperMemo stops working and change SuperMemo with anything you want. Spaced repetition, incremental reading, or any software in particular. Let's just call it at what age does learning stops working. So let's cover this in just 4 slides. So is there expiration date? There's a myth. There is no cutoff age where the brain, the software, ceases to function, or the brain stops being able to learn. Yeah, but when you get old, it's very hard to learn because you forget or you have dementia, Alzheimer's, la la la. Okay. Data. From the point of view of SuperMemo, but keep in mind, can be anything. They're active SuperMemo users on their 80s. If you really stretch it, the outlier, now he will be 97, but when I contacted him, he was 92 years old. And not that he was able to learn, it's that he was very lucid. That I'm really talking to someone in the 90s. How well spoken, the good grammar there is, and wow, it's not. It doesn't look like a person who is aging, has been aging for a long period of time. Then the perspective. In the context of lifelong learning, 59, which at the time when I did this was the age of Piotr Wozniak. Now I think he's 60 or 60. He will be 63, I don't know, something like that. It's considered very young. In lifelong learning, it's forever. So not because you get into retirement age that you're not worth in the system, in society to work, you're too old. For lifelong learning, that's not the truth. There's a universal applicability. The algorithm in SuperMemo or incremental links with repetition is mathematical, not biological. It adapts to the memory you have, regardless of age. The same as exercise. There's a very good example, Jack LaLanne, who was a fitness influencer before there was media, we could say. He was extremely fit on his prime, and later on he had less and less strength, meaning that the dumbbells he used to exercise, every time he had to lower and lower the load as he grew older, because he was biologically aging, because of, among other things, less testosterone, pa-pa-pam. Same with learning. What happens is that you compensate some of the stuff that declines. We're not going to go into the hard science to discuss it here. Whatever it decreases with aging, you compensate with your skills that you have acquired through your lifetime. So you kind of mask the aging in the stats, let's say. And not only that, is that if, regardless of it you compensate or not, because at some degree you won't be able to compensate, so your performance will start decreasing, meaning you are post your prime. That doesn't mean you cannot learn, you just learn slower than your prime. The algorithm adapts. That's the beauty of the algorithm. So now, objectively, you don't memorize as before, even if you have very sophisticated mnemonic skills and so on. So the algorithm will apply shorter intervals than before. That's about it. That doesn't mean there's no learning capacity. So quote, you don't stop playing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop playing. If this makes sense. How many people you have seen when they retire, and especially if they had a physical job for years, they just spend all day at home. And in a few years, they do downgrade their flexibility. They cannot reach their feet to put the socks, something like that, oh wow. Or they cannot even walk for more than 10 minutes. Or something like that, oh my god. It's because of the lack of movement. Same thing. Then, I want to go fast. I will do another video, fruit Crutch video, with all of and articles, with all of the science, the papers and so on. Here is the quick video, believe me. The long will be multiple hours. Cognitive maintenance, filling the gaps. You're addressing deficits, as I mentioned before. If there is related memory deficits because the fat in the brain is not the same quantity or the same presence, so the synapses in the neurons is actually the rate is lower, less frequent, but you compensate this with a super fine-tuned mnemonic system. Then an analogy will be a competition with cars. One has a Ferrari or a super high-end car. The other has, I don't know, a Nissan, a car that you can drive on the street. But it's not the same. It's much less powerful. Yeah, the raw capacity. But the driver is super skilled. So the amount that it will break and all of this will be to the minimum. And the Ferrari perhaps is not that. It's not brute force. But at the end of the day, the difference between the Ferrari and the Nissan, yes, Ferrari will win still, but not for that much. Safety net. SuperMemo, or the software, detects forgetting and schedules reviews to patch the leaks in your memory. So even if you're getting lower and lower performance, it adjusts to this. And that is the key. The key is to predict when you're about to forget it, so you do the review just before, and this has a magnifier effect. When you do a review just before you're about to forget it, it has a boost in memory that if you do it way before. It's backed by science. Then, adaptive scheduling. If your retention rate drops due to age, the system must simply schedule repetitions more frequently to compensate. Fewer intervals. It means you exactly what you are. And keep in mind that if you have used a software for a very long period of time, like Piotr Wozniak, you will have flashcards that have been scheduled for decades already. So the intervals will be in the decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. And that means that if you're successful, you're not going to see it again. Meaning that the interval goes beyond your lifespan. Only what you acquired new, that you start from scratch, from the creating the flashcard, it will make a difference. Another analogy. Using SuperMemo 59, 60, retirement age is like using reading glasses. It doesn't cure the underlying aging in the eye, but it provides the specific optical correction needed to see clearly and function perfectly. Or perfectly, let's say, good enough. It's a very good analogy. With the glasses, you don't have perfect vision. You don't need to, but it's a pretty good vision. Enough that you can read for a prolonged period of time without getting dizzy or whatever. But it doesn't cure the underlying effect. It doesn't change anything in the eye. Well, actually, if we are strict, yes. I think the retina, it increases the width, but a fragment of a millionth of a meter, something like that. The effect of wearing prescription with time. But you get my point. It's pretty good analogy. Then, SuperMemo and music. A nuanced tool. And you may ask, why now you mention music? This is off topic. It's because there's declarative and procedural. SuperMemo is great for declarative knowledge. Music theory. That will be memorizing chord progressions, lyrics, history, instrument ranges, information, data. And it's less direct for muscle memory, finger dexterity, when you play an instrument which require physical repetition. I want to make this distinction. And using music as an example. Unorthodox tasks using SuperMemo for music is considered an unorthodox use case. And again, it's one example. People use it for martial arts. And you say, martial arts with space repetition? Doesn't make sense. It's a use case for procedural. I did not want to take for granted you know what is procedural learning. Then, the variable is that the success depends heavily on how you structure the knowledge. On how. That's the key factor. Therefore, knowing this, we have the last wording, the learning curve wording. The potential friction adapting the text-based system to music learning can be difficult at the beginning. Following the example is one of the many examples, but music, I think, it's the easiest to relate to. Even, for instance, I didn't use it myself in my own life. Skill requirement. The effectiveness is proportional to your mastery of the tool. So if you have mastered the violin, the effectiveness is proportional to your mastery. You must learn to formulate music questions effectively. For instance, what is the relative minor of G major? That is more what? Procedural or declarative? And plays G major scale. This is like a scheduling the task on a spaced repetition. So this is just procedural. Play it. I play it. That's it. There's no cognitive recall, unlike here, that I can recall a fact without playing anything. Hope it makes sense. Then the result. It works. Incremental reading, spaced repetition, SuperMemo, whatever you use, will work with aging. But it demands you to become an active architect of your learning material, not just a passive consumer. So again, another analogy. Here it's more obscure, but it's very fitting. There's Kendo, one of the martial arts, especially in Japan, original from Japan. And you know you have the degrees with colors, the belt color coding. Then you're like black belt. They don't use this system. Not necessarily this system, but it's the most common. And then you have Dan, first Dan, third, until the 8th. There's no 9 anymore. There's no 9th anymore. There's 8. But the requirements to get the 8th is you have to be, I know how many years into 7th, you have to be 46 years old at the very least, and so on. And what happens at this age? Your age already weakens. Because this martial art is not just the brain, it's also physical. And how come people who are already weakened because of aging, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and whatever, they are better at the martial arts? How is that even possible? Yes, they are slower. They have less strength, less speed, and so on. But what they win is with all of the wisdom and mastery they acquire through their lifetime. Same with what we ask. A person could keep learning or using SuperMemo forever. A healthy individual. Then that you develop dementia or Alzheimer's, then it's not SuperMemo, it's anything, right? You forget from the most recent to the earlier memories until you die, until you pass away. And by the way, lifelong learning is one of the best things, if not the best, you can do to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. Yes, it's also the diet, the genetic component, but what is in your hands that you can do is lifelong learning. So now you know, more in depth. There will be more in depth in the future, a full-fledged video with all of the insights, science, and so on. But we know the answer. It never stops working for a healthy individual. You learn lifelong learning in the absolute sense of the long life. So if you are a user of SuperMemo or any software, you can continue past your retirement age or even start at your retirement age. I hope you have been learning for your life already. Experience the joy and the use of learning. But in case you didn't, you can also start. I have help people to realize that they started using SuperMemo, in this case, could be any other software, after they retired. And now they enjoy learning about philosophy, history, and learning some Greek or some of those languages related to history in their daily life. And on top of that, they will prevent dementia and so on. It's a win-win. That's all for now. See you incrementally.